Chapter 8:16. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, don't worry about that. Think about old Zhang for me first. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, what's there to think about? Haven't you figured it out? LV Hushan turned his head and looked around. Suddenly, he lowered his voice and said, Yuan Weiqing, since old Zhang helped me, will he help me again this time? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was shocked. He looked around subconsciously and asked in a trembling voice, LV Hushan, what did you say? You said that old Zhang will come? When he said this, Yuan Weiqing was even more shocked. He felt a chill coming from his heart and spreading to his whole body in an instant. He couldn't help but shiver. If what LV Hushan said was true and old Zhang really came to help him, then it would be really bad. At that time, even if he woke up Hall Master Shui, it might not be useful. Hall Master Shui's martial arts were indeed good, but the problem was that he was seriously injured now. In addition, old Zhang's martial arts were unfathomable. Yuan Weiqing was sure that Hall Master Shui was absolutely no match for old Zhang. If this was really the case, then after killing Vice Hall Master Zhang, even if he told Hall Master Shui about this matter, the result would not be what he imagined. The result that Yuan Weiqing wanted was that, after Hall Master Shui heard the news, he would immediately kill LV Hushan in anger. However, if old Zhang appeared, didn't it mean that the development of the matter would not be like this? At that time, when old Zhang appeared and killed him and Hall Master Shui, LV Hushan would be the only one left in the Tanlei sect in the South County. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly frowned. Could it be that this was old Zhang's real purpose? When everyone was fighting until both sides were injured, he suddenly appeared. Then, he killed everyone and became the boss of the secret Thunder sect in South County. Was it really like this? Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing couldn't help but tremble all over. If that's the case, when I kill Deputy Head Zhang, won't I be killed by old Zhang? Seeing Yuan Weiqing frowning and not speaking, LV Hushan asked impatiently, Yuan Weiqing, what are you thinking about? I asked you a question. Hearing LV Hushan's question, Yuan Weiqing was awakened and hurriedly waved his hand. No, I didn't think of anything. Seeing that Yuan Weiqing was obviously lying, LV Hushan frowned and sneered in his heart. If old Zhang was really willing to help him, after he eliminated Vice Hall Master Zhang, he would not let this Yuan Weiqing go. Yuan Weiqing knew everything that had happened here, so he couldn't let him live. Besides, he had bullied him before. Even if he let him go, he would be trouble sooner or later. Therefore, LV Hushan had made up his mind. As long as he got rid of Vice Hall Master Zhang, he would not let Yuan Weiqing go no matter what. Thinking of this, LV Hushan sneered in his heart and asked in a deep voice, Yuan Weiqing, don't think about those useless things. Think about it quickly. Is it possible that old Zhang will come? Yuan Weiqing waved his hand in a panic and said with a forced smile, LV Hushan, how is that possible? Old Zhang doesn't know that you will come here. How could he come to help? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned and suddenly realized that when he came out, old Zhang really didn't know. Since he didn't know that he was here, he definitely wouldn't come. Thinking of this, LV Hushan was a little disappointed. When he was about to speak, he suddenly thought of something. He hurriedly turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and said in a low voice, Yuan Weiqing, no, when we came out, do you remember that we passed by a forest? Yuan Weiqing nodded. Of course, that's the only way. As long as we go out, we will definitely pass by that forest. LV Hushan lowered his voice and said, Yuan Weiqing, when we came out, I seemed to see a figure flashing in the forest. I guess the figure in the forest must be old Zhang. Old Zhang? Yuan Weiqing was shocked and said in a trembling voice, LV Hushan, it can't be. How can you be sure that it is old Zhang? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing thought that there was no such coincidence in the world. He was relieved and said with a smile, LV Hushan, don't think too much. We didn't inform anyone when we went out this time. How could old Zhang know? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, no, I'm sure that the person in the forest must be old Zhang. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, you didn't see the figure in the forest. How can you be sure that it must be old Zhang? LV Hushan nodded and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, of course. The person in the forest must be old Zhang. There can't be anyone else. Yuan Weiqing didn't believe it. LV Hushan, don't think too much. It's impossible. No one knows that we came out today, let alone old Zhang. Even if he is good at martial arts, he is just a cleaner. How could he know our secrets? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused and turned to look at LV Hushan. He asked tentatively, LV Hushan, you didn't tell old Zhang about us, did you? LV Hushan shook his head. No, how could I tell old Zhang our secrets? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing spread out his hands. You see, that's right. You didn't tell old Zhang about us. It's even more impossible for others to tell her. How could old Zhang know? So let me say, the person in the forest can't be old Zhang. You must be wrong. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's eyes suddenly lit up. He said with a smile, I know. There are many disciples in the Tanlei sect in the South County who are willing to practice martial arts in that forest. Maybe the figure you saw is one of those disciples who practice martial arts? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, you're wrong. I'm sure that the person in the forest must be old Zhang. I can't be wrong. Hearing LV Hushan's certainty, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, how can you be so sure that it must be old Zhang in the forest? Does he have any characteristics? Or did you make an agreement? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan hesitated for a moment and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, do you know what old Zhang does for a living? Yuan Weiqing nodded. Of course. Everyone in the Tanlei sect in the South County knows that old Zhang is a cleaner. LV Hushan nodded. That's right. Have you forgotten that old Zhang has a smell on him? This smell is very strong. You can smell it even from far away. Because of this, many disciples in the Tanlei sect in the South County hate him. They hate this smell. Yuan Weiqing nodded with a smile. Of course I remember. Because of this smell on old Zhang, I even kicked him several times. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly realized something. He hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, I didn't mean that. At that time, I just wanted to remind old Zhang to change his clothes. I didn't mean any other harm. Hearing this, LV Hushan sneered in his heart. Even if you didn't mean any harm, old Zhang would never let you go. Yuan Weiqing, don't talk about those things. What I want to say is that I smelled that smell outside the forest that day. That's why I'm sure that the person in the forest must be old Zhang. Yuan Weiqing looked at LV Hushan in surprise. LV Hushan, based on this smell, are you sure that the person in the forest is old Zhang? LV Hushan nodded. Of course. In the entire Tanlei sect in the South County, other than old Zhang, who would have that smell. Speaking of this, LV Hushan sighed. Old Zhang is indeed an expert. He's different from ordinary people. He's really a role model for us. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing couldn't help but frown. Thinking of the smell on old Zhang, he felt even more disgusted. LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a smile, Yuan Weiqing, now you understand. The person in the forest must be old Zhang. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. Yuan Weiqing, think about it. Why would old Zhang hide in the forest? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. I don't know. LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you don't know, but I do. Yuan Weiqing raised his head to look at LV Hushan and asked in confusion, LV Hushan, do you really know? LV Hushan nodded, of course. Who am I? I'm sure that in the entire secret thunder sect in South County, I'm the only one who hasn't bullied old Zhang. It might be because of this reason that old Zhang trusts me very much. My relationship with him is definitely not something you can imagine. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing felt even more disgusted. LV Hushan, then tell me, why did old Zhang go to the forest? LV Hushan smiled proudly. Yuan Weiqing, can't you see that it's all because of me? LV Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, it's because old Zhang cares about me and knows that I'm going to do something, so he waited for me in the forest. He wants to see where I'm going. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing frowned and suddenly said, That's not right. When we came out, we all passed through the forest together. How could you be the only one who smelled that scent and we didn't? Hearing this, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, this is because I'm on the side closest to the forest. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing remembered that when they came out in the morning, LV Hushan was indeed on the other side of the forest, and he was on the other side. Perhaps because of this, he didn't smell anything. Thinking of that disgusting smell, Yuan Weiqing was glad that he had escaped a disaster. LV Hushan, I didn't expect you to be so lucky to be able to smell that smell. Congratulations. LV Hushan waved his hand proudly. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, old Zhang must have known that I was going to leave, so he first confirmed my route and then protected me from behind. Don't you think so? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing remembered that old Zhang was very likely hiding in the forest. He was shocked. LV Hushan, it can't be. Didn't you say that you have nothing to do with old Zhang? Why would he come all the way to help you? LV Hushan sneered and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, although I said that I have nothing to do with him, I can assure you that I treat old Zhang the best in the entire secret thunder sect in the South County. At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, when you kicked old Zhang, I actually saw it. At that time, I was still wondering if old Zhang would suddenly kill you. Maybe you're lucky. Even if you bullied old Zhang never got angry at you. He even pretended to be submissive. Yuan Weiqing, you're really lucky. If old Zhang got angry, I'm afraid you wouldn't even be able to take a single move from him. Do you believe me? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing's anger suddenly ignited. LV Hushan, what's wrong with you? You know that old Zhang is an expert. Why didn't you say anything when you saw me bullying him? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused and he suddenly sneered. Then he slowly said, LV Hushan, do you want to use old Zhang to get rid of me? Then, after old Zhang gets rid of me, you can take over my position, right? LV Hushan inadvertently said something wrong and was secretly regretting it. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, he hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, don't misunderstand. Why would I think so? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. LV Hushan, since you don't think so, why didn't you stop me when you saw me bullying old Zhang? Tell me, what were you thinking? LV Hushan smiled bitterly. Yuan Weiqing, I have already said that I saw it by accident. Every time I saw it, you had already finished bullying old Zhang. Even if I went up to stop you, I'm afraid it would be too late. So, don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself. You can't see that old Zhang is an expert. How can you blame me? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. LV Hushan, I used to treat you as a friend. You knew that I was in danger, but you didn't come to help me. Really, are you still my friend? Hearing this, LV Hushan suddenly turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you said that I'm not a friend. Then let me ask you, are you a friend to me? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused and sneered. Then, he slowly said, Yuan Weiqing, you're talking bad about me behind my back. Do you think I don't know? Chapter 8:17. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked and hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, you misunderstood. When did I say bad things about you? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you really think I don't know? Let me tell you, in fact, I already knew. It's just that I'm magnanimous and didn't want to argue with you. When he said this, LV Hushan secretly gritted his teeth. If his martial arts were not inferior to Yuan Weiqing's, he would have already settled the score with him after hearing these things. Why would he wait until now to say it? LV Hushan's temper wasn't too good. When he heard Yuan Weiqing speak ill of him behind his back, he was already furious. Unfortunately, he could only endure it because he knew that even if he went to look for Yuan Weiqing, he wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you must have misunderstood. We don't interfere with each other. Why would I say bad things about you? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, do you have to wait for me to say it before you admit it? Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, please believe me. I really didn't say anything bad about you. LV Hushan nodded and gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, did you say that my martial arts are low and I'm not worthy of being the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County? Hearing these words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked and hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how could I say such a thing? You must have misunderstood. There must be no such thing. LV Hushan saw that Yuan Weiqing still refused to admit it and was a little annoyed. Yuan Weiqing, do you have to make me say the witnesses before you admit it? Witnesses? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and asked, LV Hushan, I don't care if you have witnesses or not, but I can tell you that you must have misheard. How could I say such a thing? LV Hushan gritted his teeth and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He sighed. Yuan Weiqing, do you think there is only one witness? Let me tell you, there are 3 witnesses who can prove that you said such a thing. Do you still want to quibble? 3. Yuan Weiqing looked at LV Hushan in surprise. After a long while, he said slowly, LV Hushan, I think you have misunderstood. Can 3 people prove that I said it? Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his question and continued to speak. LV Hushan, let me tell you, maybe the 3 of them are jealous of us, want to sow disness. You can't believe their words. LV Hushan shook his head and asked with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, our relationship is just ordinary. Why do they want to drive a wedge between us? Tell me, what reason does she have to do this? But you, let me tell, let Hushan. Let Hushan. They think your martial arts are our think, so they want you and Ants and Hushan. But their real purpose is to make you come to me and then use me to defeat you so that you can't continue to be the guardian of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. LV Hushan, it must be like this. It can't be wrong. Please believe me, I definitely didn't say anything. After listening to Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, I don't deny that some people are jealous of me, but are all 3 of them jealous of me? This doesn't seem possible, right? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a sneer, LV Hushan, why is it impossible? Do you think that they are right just because they have more people? Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his question and continued to speak. LV Hushan, if I'm not wrong, the martial arts of these 3 people must be higher than yours. The reason why they said this is because they are not convinced by you. They think that with your martial arts, you are not as good as them, so they want to use me to get rid of you so that they can become the guardians of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. LV Hushan, don't you understand this principle? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment, and his brows gradually frowned. Yuan Weiqing was right. The 3 people who said this were indeed stronger than him in martial arts. Could it be that what Yuan Weiqing said was true? The real purpose of the three people was to let him find Yuan Weiqing to settle the score. Everyone knew that his martial arts were not as good as Yuan Weiqing's. If he could not bear this and went to find Yuan Weiqing impulsively, then the result would be obvious. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing frowned even more. Could it be that he was wrong? Yuan Weiqing actually did not say such a thing. The truth of this matter was actually fabricated by those people who were jealous of him. No, LV Hushan's heart suddenly moved. Although their martial arts were higher than his, it was not much higher. Even if he could not become a guardian, it seemed that they could not become one either. In the secret Thunder sect in the South region, there were at least a dozen people who had higher martial arts than him, and these three people were only inferior among these people. Even if he was dismissed, he could only choose from those with high martial arts. How could they let people with inferior martial arts be guardians? Thinking of this, LV Hushan sneered in his heart. He somewhat understood that this was Yuan Weiqing's quibbling. Fortunately, he understood it. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would really be fooled by Yuan Weiqing. LV Hushan raised his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He sneered, "Yuan Weiqing, I think you don't have to quibble. Although these people's martial arts are higher than mine, I can tell you clearly that even if I am not a guardian, it is absolutely impossible for me to be one of them. I believe that they themselves know this, so they will not do such a stupid thing. Since they will not do that kind of thing, then the truth of the matter is that you are lying. Yuan Weiqing, am I right?" After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was suddenly taken aback. He thought that by relying on the words just now, he should be able to fool around, but who would have thought that LV Hushan would see through it? That's right, Yuan Weiqing did say such words, and he did not say it when he was drunk. From the first day that LV Hushan became the guardian of the secret Thunder sect in the South region, Yuan Weiqing actually looked down on LV Hushan, who had low martial arts. He thought that LV Hushan must have relied on some kind of relationship to become the guardian of the secret Thunder sect in the South region. Yuan Weiqing believed that he could become the guardian of the secret Thunder sect in the South region because of his own efforts, and he was even faintly proud of it. However, LV Hushan could become a guardian with such low martial arts, which made him a little uncomfortable in his heart. In addition, Yuan Weiqing was very clear that even if LV Hushan knew that he said such words, he probably would not dare to say anything. If LV Hushan really dared to come to him to question him, he only needed to teach him a lesson at that time to make him lose face. It was precisely because of this reason that Yuan Weiqing did not care about these things. However, it was different now. In the past, Yuan Weiqing's martial arts were far superior to LV Hushan's, so he was not afraid that LV Hushan would come looking for trouble. Now, he was seriously injured. Although his martial arts were about the same as LV Hushan's, LV Hushan had the support of Vice Hall Master Zhang. As long as he made any strange movements, Vice Hall Master Zhang would immediately rush over and kill him. It was precisely because of this reason that Yuan Weiqing was unwilling to admit this matter. LV Hushan, this is not true. Don't listen to their nonsense. Think about it carefully. With your martial arts, you can become the guardian of the secret Thunder sect in the South region. Their martial arts are higher than yours. Why can't they become the guardian of the secret Thunder sect in the South region? Maybe they already have a plan. As long as you don't become the guardian of the secret Thunder sect in the South region, they will have a chance. Do you understand? LV Hushan frowned and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, you're saying that they have a chance to sow discord between us, right? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly nodded. LV Hushan, of course. As long as there's a chance, it's better than no chance. LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you. You must have said that, but I don't want to argue with you about this matter now. At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer him, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, I don't mind you saying this to other disciples of the secret Thunder sect in the South region, but why did you say this to Hall Master Shui? Don't tell me you didn't say it. I know about this matter. You can't hide it even if you want to. If you know what's good for you, quickly admit it. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was really a little surprised. LV Hushan, how did you know? Who did you hear it from? Looking at Yuan Weiqing's nervous look, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, does it matter who said it? I just want to ask you, did you say it? Yuan Weiqing secretly gritted his teeth and slowly shook his head. LV Hushan, I think you've misunderstood. How could I say such things to Hall Master Shui? You must have been deceived by someone else. There's no such thing. I didn't say it. Seeing that Yuan Weiqing still refused to admit it, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, why can't you admit it? I know what you said. Do you still want to hide it from me? What? As soon as LV Hushan finished speaking, Yuan Weiqing immediately exclaimed, LV Hushan, you know what I said? How is this possible? You're talking nonsense. It's absolutely impossible. LV Hushan sighed and slowly shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, since you dare to do it, why don't you dare to admit it? Since I said it, I definitely know. If you still want to hide it from me, then you're looking down on me. Do you understand? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. LV Hushan, I didn't say it. I didn't say anything. LV Hushan frowned and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, one day, maybe when you're drunk, go to Hall Master Shui and tell him that my martial arts are low and I can't do many things. I'm not suitable to be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. I hope that Hall Master Shui can remove me from the protector position and replace me with a new person. Speaking of this, LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sighed before continuing, Yuan Weiqing, not only did you say that I'm not suitable to be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County, but you also provided Hall Master Shui with many candidates who can be protectors. I hope that Hall Master Shui can choose one of these people to replace me. Yuan Weiqing, I'm comprehensive enough, right? If you still refuse to admit it, then you're really looking down on me. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing's expression suddenly changed. He cursed in his heart. He had indeed done what LV Hushan said. Yuan Weiqing remembered very clearly that day when he was drinking with a few friends. After 3 rounds of drinking, he had already drunk a little too much, so he talked about the protector position. Then, Yuan Weiqing said that LV Hushan was not suitable to be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County because his martial arts were too low. He was not as good as the few people who were drinking with him. The few people who were drinking with him naturally agreed with this kind of flattery. Therefore, Yuan Weiqing used the excuse of being drunk to find Hall Master Shui and directly said that LV Hushan was not suitable to be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. He also said the names of the few people who were drinking with him that day, saying that these people were the most suitable to be protectors. Yuan Weiqing still remembered that Hall Master Shui did not reply to him at that time. He only asked him to go back and rest, saying that he needed to think about it carefully. After Yuan Weiqing went back to sleep, he thought of this matter and secretly regretted it. However, he had already said it, so he could only secretly hope that LV Hushan would not find out about this matter. After a long time, Yuan Weiqing saw that LV Hushan did not come to find him, so he thought that this matter was over. However, he never expected that LV Hushan actually knew everything. He thought that it was over. Seeing that Yuan Weiqing lowered his head and did not speak, but his expression became very ugly, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, to tell you the truth, I don't know how many things you said to Hall Master Shui. I only know what I said just now. I just want to ask, do you admit it or not? Hearing LV Hushan's question again, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and said slowly, LV Hushan, this matter is my fault. Since you know so clearly, then you should also know that I did drink a lot that day. I drank too much. In addition, those people instigated me, so I did such a thing. I hope you can forgive me this time, okay? Hearing Yuan Weiqing admit it, LV Hushan's expression suddenly changed and he said coldly, Yuan Weiqing, you keep saying that you treat me as a friend, and I have always treated you as a friend. However, Yuan Weiqing, do you really treat me as a friend? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly nodded. LV Hushan, of course. If I don't treat you as a friend, why do I always drink with you? Drink? Stopping here, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, the reason why you drink with me is probably because I invited you to drink, right? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, if I didn't invite you to drink, would you come? Chapter 8:18. LV Hushan's martial arts were not as good as Yuan Weiqing's, so before this incident, LV Hushan respected Yuan Weiqing very much. In order to get closer to Yuan Weiqing, LV Hushan would invite Yuan Weiqing for a drink every once in a while. Of course, it was almost always LV Hushan's treat. Yuan Weiqing had never invited LV Hushan. LV Hushan sighed, Yuan Weiqing, I always want to have a good relationship with you, so I must invite you for a drink almost every 5 days to get closer to you. LV Hushan suddenly turned his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, but you drank my wine and said bad things about me behind my back. You even went to Hall Master Shui to complain about me. Let me ask you, are you worthy of me? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing's face suddenly changed. He hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, you misunderstood. I wanted to invite you for a drink before, but you always said it first. In order to not embarrass you, I could only listen to you. LV Hushan, it's not that I don't want to invite you, but you said it faster than me. You can't blame me for this. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan was so angry that he snorted coldly, Yuan Weiqing, don't quibble anymore. I admit that your martial arts are higher than mine, so I should curry favor with you. However, you shouldn't treat me like this just because I'm trying to curry favor with you. Yuan Weiqing, you really aren't a good person. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's face turned slightly red. He hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, don't mention the past. If you continue to talk about it, I'm afraid it will hurt the friendship between the two of us. Don't you think so? Our friendship? LV Hushan nodded and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, you are right. We really can't hurt the friendship between us. Looking at LV Hushan's sneer, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and suddenly said, LV Hushan, no matter what the past was like, and no matter who was right or wrong, since we are now in an alliance, we should help each other in the same boat. We shouldn't think about those bad things anymore. Otherwise, it won't do us any good if we each have our own thoughts. Don't you think so? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment and then nodded. Yes, Yuan Weiqing, you're right. I don't want to talk about the past. Although you've wronged me, I'll forgive you. Is that okay? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing could no longer hold it in. He lowered his voice and said, LV Hushan, you only know how to say that I'm sorry for you. Could it be that you're sorry for me? LV Hushan sneered, Yuan Weiqing, I'll treat you to a drink within 5 days. Don't tell me I'm sorry? Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered, LV Hushan, since you want to know, then I'll tell you. You're right, you do invite me to drink every 5 days. But you're treating me to a drink while talking bad about me behind my back. Do you think I don't know? Hearing these words, LV Hushan's expression involuntarily changed. Yuan Weiqing, what are you saying? Since I'm treating you to a drink, how can I possibly speak ill of you? Yuan Weiqing sighed, LV Hushan, do you really think I don't know? LV Hushan sneered, Yuan Weiqing, I didn't do it. How would I know? Yuan Weiqing nodded, LV Hushan, since you didn't do it, let me ask you. Why do all the disciples of the secret Thunder sect in the South County know that you're treating me to a drink? Hearing this, LV Hushan's expression changed again. He forced a smile and said, Yuan Weiqing, we're the protectors of the secret thunder sect in the South County. Is it strange that they know that we're drinking together? Yuan Weiqing sneered and shook his head. LV Hushan, in fact, it's fine for us to drink together. But the problem is, why does everyone say that I forced you to treat me to a drink? Hearing this, LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand and said with a smile, Yuan Weiqing, how could this happen? Don't listen to their nonsense. When did you force me? I was willing. Yuan Weiqing sighed. I didn't know what was going on in the past, but when someone told me later, I understood why everyone knew. Yuan Weiqing turned to look at LV Hushan and gritted his teeth. LV Hushan, can you explain to me why everyone knows? LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, how would I know? I've already said that they're all talking nonsense. As long as you don't listen, everything will be fine. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, too many people know about this matter. I'm afraid everyone knows about it. Even Hall Master Shui already knows about it. LV Hushan sighed. I really didn't expect that we were just drinking together. How could so many people know about it? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and looked at LV Hushan. He asked with a sneer, LV Hushan, this is because someone deliberately told everyone about this matter, right? Hearing this, LV Hushan's expression suddenly changed. He forced a smile and said, Yuan Weiqing, how is this possible? You're thinking too much, aren't you? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, before this matter, I was still drinking and eating with everyone. But ever since you treated me to a meal, no one has been drinking and eating with me. LV Hushan, originally, when everyone was drinking together, it didn't matter who paid. What was important was that they were happy. However, when I went to drink with everyone later, everyone mainly looked at whether I paid or not. If I pay for this meal, then this matter will be over and no one will know about it. But if I didn't pay for a meal, it would be a big matter. The next day, it would immediately spread and all the disciples of the secret thunder sect in the South County would know that I, Yuan Weiqing, am a freeloader. Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan and sighed. LV Hushan, if I went out for 10 meals and I paid for 9 of them, and only one meal I didn't pay for, the news would immediately spread. Do you believe it? LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, you're thinking too much. How could such a thing happen? Absolutely not. You're wrong. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, I didn't know what was going on before. Later, a few people who were close to me told me the truth. LV Hushan, do you know the truth? LV Hushan's expression suddenly changed and he hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, what truth? Everyone is talking nonsense. They're just playing around. Don't take it seriously. Yuan Weiqing suddenly raised his hand and pointed at LV Hushan. He said angrily, LV Hushan, they told me that you were the one who spread the news. Am I right? LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, how is this possible? I've already told you not to believe them. They're all lying to you. Yuan Weiqing glanced at LV Hushan and asked coldly, LV Hushan, let me ask you. Why did they lie to me? Give me a reason? LV Hushan calmed down and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, there are actually many reasons. For example, they're very jealous of you. They're jealous that you can become the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. Or they hate you because you're not a good person. In short, there are many possibilities. Am I right? Hearing LV Hushan's explanation, Yuan Weiqing sneered and shook his head. LV Hushan, it's possible that they're jealous of you. I just want to know why they're jealous of me. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer him. LV Hushan, let me ask you. In terms of martial arts, which one of them is better than me? In terms of wisdom, which one of them has completed more tasks than me? Let me tell you, it's impossible. Do you understand? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan could not help but frown. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, Yuan Weiqing, you're wrong. It's because your martial arts are high that they're jealous of you, right? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sneered, LV Hushan, my martial arts are high, so I can become the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. Their martial arts are high enough, so they can also be protectors. I didn't stop them. Why are they jealous of me? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, how can jealousy be separated by those things? You can become the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. This is something that makes people jealous. Yuan Weiqing, I'm afraid I don't need to tell you that before you became a protector, there were many people eyeing this position. You should know very well, right? Hearing LV Hushan's words, a trace of pride immediately appeared on Yuan Weiqing's face. LV Hushan, of course I know, but so what? Among all these people, I don't think there are many people whose martial arts are higher than mine, right? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer him. LV Hushan, since my martial arts are higher than theirs, is it strange that I can become the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, why don't you understand? The fact that you're the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County is already very enviable. No matter how high your martial arts are, so what? Can't others be jealous of you? Yuan Weiqing waved his fist. LV Hushan, if they're jealous, let them come to me. I'll naturally beat them until they're no longer jealous. LV Hushan waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, your martial arts are indeed high, higher than most people. Logically speaking, it's reasonable for you to be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. However, many people confirm that although your martial arts are high, you're not handsome enough, so you're not suitable to be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, isn't this reason ridiculous? Yuan Weiqing's expression was a little ugly. What kind of lousy reason is this? Can it still be considered a reason? LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, it might not be a reason to you, but to some people, it's a very important reason. Do you understand? Some people feel that you're not handsome enough. If you become the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County, it will bring shame to the sect. If they, who are more handsome, become protectors, it will bring glory to the sect. Therefore, they are jealous of you and want you not to become the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, there are many reasons like this. Also, some very tall people think that you're very short. How can a short person like you be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County? Also, some people are very fat. They think that a thin person like you can be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County because you're not fat enough and can't show the dignity of the secret thunder sect in the South County. There are also some older people who think that you're too young and that you're not suitable to be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. They think that you should let an older person be the protector. Only then can the secret thunder sect in the South County become stronger. LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sighed. Yuan Weiqing, look, how many people are jealous of you? If these people speak ill of you together, won't it cause serious consequences? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned. After a long while, he asked in a trembling voice. LV Hushan, you're talking nonsense. How can such a ridiculous reason be a reason? LV Hushan shook his head and said with a bitter smile, Yuan Weiqing, don't doubt it. This matter is so strange. Many people think that you're not suitable to be the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County because of these strange reasons. So they started rumors and wanted to replace you as the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. Is this strange? Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, you mean that they're the ones who started the rumors? They're jealous of me, so they're saying bad things about me, right? LV Hushan nodded, of course. Other than them, can you think of anyone else? At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. Yuan Weiqing, you have to know that the people who do such things must have their own thoughts. These people think that you're not suitable to be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County, so they spread rumors. For example, between the two of us, I think that I'm more handsome than Shui Tang, and you think that you're taller than Hall Master Shui. Therefore, I said bad things about Hall Master Shui behind his back, wanting to take advantage of the fact that I'm more handsome than him to become the Hall Master of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. As for you, because you're taller than Hall Master Shui, you also said bad things about him behind his back, wanting to take advantage of your height to become the Hall Master of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. Yuan Weiqing, I'm only talking about the two of us. If there are still people who are jealous of other things, then when they hear that someone is saying bad things about Hall Master Shui, they will definitely not let go of this good opportunity and will definitely spread even worse news. At that time, you should know very well what the result will be, right? Chapter 8:19. Yuan Weiqing frowned and said, How is this possible? LV Hushan sighed, Why is it impossible? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, don't you think this reason is far-fetched? LV Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you think my reason for speaking ill of you is far-fetched? Yuan Weiqing squinted at LV Hushan and sneered. LV Hushan, in fact, you don't have to quibble. I don't believe your reasons. In short, you're speaking ill of me, right? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, you don't believe what I say. What else can I say? If you want to believe it, then believe it. If you don't, then forget it. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's heart was suddenly filled with anger. If it was before, he would have already taught LV Hushan a lesson. But now he couldn't. He was seriously injured and was no longer LV Hushan's opponent. LV Hushan, no matter what, you said that I spoke ill of you. But don't forget that you also spoke ill of me behind my back. So, we're even. What do you think? LV Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, this matter is even. But don't forget that there's another matter. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, what else is there? Why don't I know about it? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, do you remember that Hall Master Shui once sent us to look for bluestones on the Green Mountain? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was suddenly shocked. He forced a smile and nodded. Of course I remember. The bluestones on the Green Mountain are important materials for our production. Hall Master Shui trusted you enough to send you to look for them. LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, you're right. The bluestones on the Green Mountain are really important to us. Hall Master Shui sent me to look for such an important thing. To be honest, I'm very happy that he trusted me so much. At this point, LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sighed. Yuan Weiqing, it's a good thing that Hall Master Shui trusts me so much. However, the way you treated me made me bitterly disappointed. Yuan Weiqing, I would treat you to a meal every few days in order to get closer to you. But you actually did such a thing. It really makes me a little unhappy. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, since you said so, then I'll say it too. Back to the previous question, I'm afraid the reason why you invited me to drink and eat is to ruin my reputation, right? Do you really think that I don't know? You were the one who spread those unpleasant words to make others think that I, Yuan Weiqing, am not a good person. In the end, no one wants to interact with me anymore. Isn't that what you want to see? LV Hushan waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, we've already talked about it. Don't mention those things anymore, okay? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and said, LV Hushan, you mentioned it first. I'm just stating the facts. LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I don't want to argue with you about bad words. I just want to ask you. We drank so much wine. Have you ever treated me to a meal? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing immediately sneered. LV Hushan, do you know why I never treat you? LV Hushan sneered. Isn't it because you look down on me and think that I should treat you, right? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you always treat me to a meal because you want to get closer to me. I understand. I also want to treat you to a meal to get closer to you. However, since I heard that you were the one who spread those rumors, to be honest, I don't want to treat you to a meal anymore. LV Hushan, since you're willing to say such bad words, then just say it. Moreover, you treated me to a meal and a drink. Because of these bad words you said, I won't have any friendship with you. Do you understand? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, that is to say, I treated you to a meal so many times. Don't you have any gratitude at all? Yuan Weiqing sneered and shook his head. LV Hushan, to be honest, I was very grateful to you. However, since you said bad things about me, not only did I not thank you, but I also secretly laughed at you. Do you understand? LV Hushan was furious when he heard this. He clenched his fist and wanted to step forward. However, when he thought of the current situation, he gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, since you don't want my friendship, just treat it as if I didn't treat you. Yuan Weiqing had already seen that LV Hushan was about to make a move. He was shocked and hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, we have already talked about this. Don't mention this matter again. Let bygones be bygones. No matter who is right or wrong, let's not pursue it, okay? LV Hushan gritted his teeth and nodded. Okay, Yuan Weiqing, I hope you can remember what you said. Yuan Weiqing nodded. Don't worry. My memory is the worst. As long as it is in the past, I don't remember anything. LV Hushan sighed. I treated you to a meal so many times, but you actually forgot it. Alas. Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, what did you want to say? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan remembered the question just now and continued. Yuan Weiqing, we were talking about the green or on Green Mountain. Yuan Weiqing nodded. I remember, of course I remember. That time, there were a total of 3 of you who went to Green Mountain. You didn't come back until a month later, right? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, didn't you say that you have a bad memory? I think it's quite good. You can still remember such a long time ago so clearly. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he sneered and continued. Yuan Weiqing, is it because you feel guilty that you remember it clearly? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's expression suddenly changed. He frowned and asked, LV Hushan, what do you mean? Why don't I understand? You don't understand? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you're wrong. You should understand it very well because this is something that you carefully planned. How can you not understand? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a smile, LV Hushan, what do you mean? I don't understand more and more. Hall Master Shui sent you to Green Mountain to look for the Green Oregon. How can you say that it was carefully planned? LV Hushan, if I had such great power, wouldn't I be the Hall Master of the secret Thunder Sect in South County? LV Hushan sneered and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, don't lie to me. I've already investigated this matter. Otherwise, how could I dare to say it? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's expression finally changed. LV Hushan, what nonsense are you talking about? You went to Green Mountain to look for the Green Oregon. This is your business. Why are you talking about me? LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, because this matter is related to you, that's why I'm talking about you. Are you not satisfied? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone suddenly became cold. Yuan Weiqing, if you don't want people to know, don't do it in the first place. Haven't you heard of this sentence? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, since this matter has passed, why don't we not talk about this matter and talk about the current situation? LV Hushan shook his head and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I didn't want to talk about this matter, but now that I've mentioned it, why don't we make it clear now? What do you think? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, although you didn't find the green ore in the end, what does this have to do with me? It's your fault. How can I be involved? Green ore. LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, what is the green ore? In your eyes, the green ore is just a catalyst. Your real target is probably me, right? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, let's not talk about the past anymore. Why do you always talk about the past? Are you dissatisfied with me? Dissatisfied? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, if you were me, I'm afraid you would be even more dissatisfied with this kind of thing, right? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he sneered and continued. Yuan Weiqing, to be honest, when I found out the truth of this matter, if my martial arts were higher than yours, I'm afraid I would have already settled the score with you. But you're lucky that your martial arts are higher than mine. So, although I knew the truth, I endured it. Yuan Weiqing turned his head and looked at LV Hushan. He gritted his teeth and said, LV Hushan, we are now cooperating to deal with the current situation. You keep talking about the past. Isn't this a bit inappropriate? Inappropriate? LV Hushan sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, in fact, now is the most appropriate time. Because your martial arts are not as good as mine, no matter what I say, you can't do anything to me. Yuan Weiqing, if it was in the past, if I dared to say these words, I'm afraid you would have already taught me a lesson. Then tell me, isn't it just right to say these words now? Yuan Weiqing frowned, knowing that he could not avoid it. He gritted his teeth and asked, LV Hushan, what do you know? You just went to Green Mountain to look for Green Oregon. Is this important? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, going to Green Mountain to look for green ore is of course not important to you, but it is very important to me. Because, if I'm unlucky, I'm afraid I won't be able to come back. Yuan Weiqing, don't you think so? Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan and asked coldly, LV Hushan, who did you hear these nonsense from? Can you tell me the truth? You went to Green Mountain to look for Green Oregon. Even if you encounter danger, it has nothing to do with me. It's your own martial arts that is not good enough. It has nothing to do with others. Do you understand? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan nodded and said with a sneer, Yes, Yuan Weiqing, you are right. You want to use this point to deal with me. Yuan Weiqing, am I right? Once this matter is successful, it's just my martial arts that is not good enough. It has nothing to do with you. Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, I think you are thinking too much. Have you forgotten that when you set out, I went to see you off? If I wanted to harm you, how could I see you off? LV Hushan nodded. Yes, Yuan Weiqing, when I set out, you did see me off. Because if you didn't see me off, how could you harm me? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was stunned. Then, he asked in a panic, LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. I'm sending you off because we have a good relationship. How could I harm you? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan nodded and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, I remember very clearly that when we set out that morning, it was a very good day with blue sky and white clouds. Setting out in such good weather, I was in a very good mood. In such a good mood you came to see me off. At that time, I was in a very good mood and thought that our relationship had taken a step further. Then we set out for Green Mountain. It took us 5 days to reach the foot of Green Mountain. Because it was already late, we spent the night at the foot of the mountain. The next day we set out to look for green ore on Green Mountain. LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sighed. Yuan Weiqing, this is what happened during the time we set out for Green Mountain. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, is there something wrong with this? No matter who goes to look for ores, they have to go through the same step. LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, there was no problem with this distance. The problem was when we went to Green Mountain the next day. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he continued. The next day, the weather was still very good. The three of us set out for Green Mountain. According to the information we bought, the green ore was at the top of Green Mountain. We followed the path up the mountain. When we reached the peak, there was no road. We climbed along the steep mountain wall to the main peak. The danger came at this time. I still remember very clearly that when we reached the top of the mountain and wanted to rest, we saw a huge bee flying towards us. Although this bee's flying speed was very fast, under the attack of the three of us, the bee was eliminated in the blink of an eye. Having killed the bee, we sat down to rest, but we had not rested long before we heard the annoying buzzing again. This time, there were two bees flying towards us. The three of us dealing with two bees was of course not a problem. We easily got rid of these two bees. But this was not the end. In the following period of time, there were always bees flying towards us to attack us. The most important thing was that the number of bees flying towards us was increasing. At first, there were only 1 or 2, but gradually it evolved into 3 or 4. In the end, there were more than 10 bees attacking us together. Chapter 8:20. LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing, gritted his teeth and said, Yuan Weiqing, the bees on the Green Mountain are quite big, each one is the size of a palm. These bees are not only big but also very venomous. As long as you are stung, if you do not have the antidote, you will definitely die within 20 hours. In the beginning, there were only 1 or 2 bees, so it was easy for us to deal with them, but as the number of bees increased, it was not so easy to deal with them. As we saw more and more bees, we did not have time to look for the green ore, and began to look for a place to take refuge. At that time there were more and more bees, and if we could not find a place to hide, I am afraid we would all be killed by these bees. Speaking of this, LV Hushan sighed. This time it was really dangerous, seeing more and more bees flying over. The few of us ran while resisting them. Fortunately, one of the three of us had come to the Green Mountain before, so we knew that there was a cave in front of us, which could be used as a hiding place. The three of us ran all the way. I still remember very clearly that the disciple who knew the location of the cave was leading the way, while the other person and I were behind to resist the bees that were chasing us. In this way we did not dare to stop running forward, and when we were about to reach the cave, unfortunately, the disciple next to me, when he saw that there was finally a place to hide, his mood was somewhat agitated, and as a result, he was accidentally stung by those bees. It was not easy for us to run to the cave and hide. These bees did not fly away, but waited for us outside the cave. Since the bees did not fly away, we naturally did not dare to go out, and could only wait in the cave. There was no door in the cave, so the three of us could only block the bees outside, to prevent them from attacking. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, and then slowly said, It was also at that time that I found a very important problem. Yuan Weiqing, do you know what the problem is? Yuan Weiqing's face became very ugly. He shook his head and said with a smile, I don't know, I was not there, how could I know? LV Hushan shook his head and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you're wrong. How could you not know? You should know it best, right? At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, at that time, the three of us changed shifts to guard the entrance of the cave. I was at the back. However, even though I wasn't standing in front of him, The cave wasn't that big. Green Oars could see the situation outside from behind. I could see that when the two of them went forward to block the bees, although the bees were unwilling to leave, they didn't attack much. Even if they did attack, it was only an occasional attack. To tell the truth, when the bees stopped attacking the two of them, I thought the matter was over. When they came back, it was my turn to guard them. Only then did I realize that I was wrong. Completely wrong. These bees had no intention of leaving. They were waiting for me. As soon as I stood at the mouth of the cave, the bees buzzed wildly and attacked me with all their might. Fortunately, I had a knife that day, and the entrance of the cave wasn't that big, so when the bees attacked, I was barely able to block them. In fact, even if this happened, I didn't pay much attention to it. I thought that these bees would attack at this time. I resisted with all my might, and finally, after a Herculean effort, I was able to block the bees. At this time, it was time to change shift. Another disciple came over and blocked the bees outside, while I went back to rest. When I went back to rest, when I looked outside, I suddenly discovered that the bees that were attacking with all their might had stopped. Seeing this scene, I actually had some doubts in my heart, but I didn't dare to confirm that what I thought was true. Therefore, I didn't dare to say anything and continued to observe. After a while, another disciple went to guard the entrance. When that disciple came to the entrance of the cave, I carefully observed and found that the bees were still buzzing in the distance, but refused to come close to attack him. At that time, my heart was even more suspicious. Although I didn't dare to be 100% sure, but I was 80% sure that there was something fishy about this matter. After a while, it was time for me to guard the entrance. When I went out, I deliberately observed the outside to see if the situation outside was what I guessed. Sure enough, when I walked to the entrance of the cave, the buzzing sound immediately became louder, and countless bees began to attack me crazily. LV Hushan turned his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, at that time, I was completely sure that the reason why these bees attacked us was not because of the two of them. In fact, the main target of these bees was me. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a smile, LV Hushan, you think too much. Bees don't understand people's thoughts, so how could they know who to attack? LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, At that time, I thought the situation on Green Mountain was like this, because it was the first time I came to Green Mountain, so I thought there were a lot of bees here. When I finally resisted the attack of that family of bees, I came back to rest. Intentionally or unintentionally, I chatted with that disciple who had come to Green Mountain. That disciple told me that when he came to Green Mountain before, although he could see bees, they were very few, and even if he saw those bees would not take the initiative to attack him. He also told me that he thought those bees would not attack people, but he didn't expect that these bees would attack people so fiercely. After listening to him, in fact, I understood that the problem lay with me. At that time, I wondered why I could cause those bees to attack me. To be honest, I didn't know the reason, I only knew that those bees were mainly attacking me. Is it because I'm different from them in some way? Since I had this thought, I immediately looked at the things they were carrying, intentionally or unintentionally. In fact, the things they carried were similar. They carried a bag on their backs, which was full of clothes and weapons in their hands, which were for self-defense. Although the weapons of the three of us were different, it was too ridiculous for the bees to attack me just because of the different styles of the weapons. Therefore, it couldn't be the problem of the weapons. Since it wasn't the problem of the weapons, what could be the problem? Was it the clothes we wore outside? At that time, I looked at the clothes the three of us were wearing, trying to find out what was the difference. However, it was a pity that the three of us were wearing the same clothes, which was the uniform of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. Due to the same status, whether it was the color or the style, they were exactly the same. The only difference was that we were tall and short, and our clothes were long and short. Was it because he was wearing the longest clothes that the bees attacked him? Even I felt that this reason was ridiculous. Therefore, it couldn't be this reason. There must be another reason. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing, and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you know the reason? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. How would I know the reason? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, since you don't know, then listen to me and you will naturally know. Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he continued. The three of us were wearing the same clothes, and the color of our backpacks was also about the same. Therefore, the clothes and backpacks could be excluded. It was not because of these two things. Since it was not because of these two things, then what could be the reason? Then, I began to compare again. What else was there? In addition to the clothes, the three of us were also wearing shoes. Unfortunately, the shoes were the same as the clothes. They were all in the uniform style of the Secret Thunder sect in South County. There was no difference. In this way, I could exclude all aspects of the clothes. However, after excluding these things, there was nothing else? This time, each of us had a weapon and a backpack. Other than these, there was nothing else. To be honest, at that time, I was still wondering if I had guessed wrong. Because we didn't have anything extra on us. It was also at this time that the disciple who was stung by the bees became more and more swollen. He was a little scared and took out a jade pendant to give to me. He said that if he couldn't take it, I should give this jade pendant to his family. Seeing him like this, I felt very uncomfortable. It was all because of me that he was injured. It was also at that time that I suddenly remembered these little things. I also had a jade pendant on me. Was it because of this jade pendant? Thinking of this, I didn't care about how precious this jade pendant was and directly threw it out of the cave. If this jade pendant attracted those bees, then these bees would definitely chase after this jade pendant. Unfortunately, my gaze was fixed on the jade pendant that flew out, but those bees didn't seem to see it and ignored it. I knew that it wasn't this jade pendant that attracted the bees. It should be something else. Since I had this plan and the situation was urgent, I didn't care much and directly threw out all the little things I had on me. In the end, I threw out all the silver, but none of these things attracted the attention of the bees. When the injured disciple saw me throwing things, he thought that I was scared and hurried over to comfort me. He told me not to worry and that after a while, those bees would fly away on their own. Of course, I didn't believe him. These bees were attracted by the things I had on me. If they didn't achieve their goal, how could they fly away? At this time, there wasn't much on me. Besides the clothes I was wearing, there was also the weapon in my hand. As for the little things I had on me, I still had two. One was a medicine that I had specially brought to treat injuries. I was afraid that if I got injured, there would be no doctor to treat me, so I specially brought this medicine. The other thing is also a medicine. Saying this, LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you should be very clear about the other thing I have on me, right? Hearing LV Hushan's question, Yuan Weiqing's face suddenly changed and he hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how would I know what you have on you? LV Hushan shook his head. No, Yuan Weiqing should be asking how you don't know? Saying this, LV Hushan's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to speak, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, it's because you gave this to me when you came to send me off. Could it be that you've forgotten about it so quickly? Your memory is really bad. You prepared this for me with great care. You definitely won't forget about it so easily. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth and pretended to be puzzled. LV Hushan, what is it? Is it the elixir I gave you? LV Hushan nodded. That's right, it's the elixir you gave me. I really should thank you properly. When saying this, LV Hushan deliberately emphasized the word elixir, so that people could hear it clearly. Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. We're all friends, so there's no need to say such things. Although this elixir isn't very precious, it's still a token of my sincerity. If anything happens to you when you go to Green Mountain this time, this elixir can save you once. LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, you're right. The elixir you gave me is indeed very precious, because the value of this elixir is equal to the value of the three of us. After hearing these words, Yuan Weiqing's forehead was already covered in sweat. LV Hushan, you don't have to be so polite. Although the people of the Secret Thunder sect in the South County haven't done anything serious on Green Mountain, it's not wrong to be careful. It's also good to bring some elixirs. LV Hushan sighed. Yes, without this elixir, how would I know that someone hates me so much? What? As soon as LV Hushan finished speaking, Yuan Weiqing immediately exclaimed, LV Hushan, what are you talking about? You must be joking. How could someone hate you? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan suddenly turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked slowly. Yuan Weiqing, what you said is very good, but if you don't hate me, why did you give me such an elixir? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said quickly, LV Hushan, the elixir I gave you is for treating injuries. How can you say that? You disappointed me too much. If you didn't want it, you could have refused it. I didn't force you to accept it. Chapter 821. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, if I refused at that time, I'm afraid you would find a way to make me accept it, right? Because this is the most important step in your plan. How could you not complete it? Hearing these words, Yuan Weiqing was taken aback. His voice trembled a little. LV Hushan, what are you talking about? Why don't I understand? What plan? What important step? I don't understand at all. You'd better not talk nonsense. You should think about what to do now. LV Hushan shook his head and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I didn't want to say it at first, but since I've already said it, how can I only say half of it? I might as well say it all. Let me see what other excuses you have. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you've misunderstood me. That pill was something I found with great difficulty. It's said that it's very effective in treating injuries. That's why I gave it to you. Is that wrong? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, why are you still holding on to hope that I won't find out? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused. But then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to speak, he continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, to be honest, if I were you, I'm afraid I would have admitted it long ago. Yuan Weiqing waved his hand. LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. I don't think I've done anything wrong to you, so I won't believe anything you say. LV Hushan frowned and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you think that as long as you don't admit it, I won't find out? Speaking of this, LV Hushan snorted and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, in fact, I have already discovered the secret of that medicine. Even if you are hiding it, do you think I will believe you? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, I have nothing to hide from you. You are thinking too much. This is not my fault. LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, listen to me first. Then you'll know whether you're wrong or not. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused, but immediately after, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to speak, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, at that time, I only had these 2 pills left. To be honest, I really didn't want to throw them away because they could save my life at a critical moment. However, there were more and more bees outside. If he didn't think of a way, he might not even be able to pass this stage. How could he think about the future? Understanding this point, I no longer hesitated. First, I threw out the pill I bought to see what effect it had. In the end, after I threw out the pill, those bees were only afraid of being hit by the pill, so it didn't attract their attention. At this moment, I finally have some doubts about you, because the only thing left on me is this pill that you gave me. Although I don't really believe that you would harm me, I still threw this pill out. Speaking of this, LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, do you know what happened after you threw this pill out? Yuan Weiqing's face changed, and he asked with a forced smile, What? I wasn't there, how could I know? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, you are wrong. You should know, because this is all planned by you. How could you not know the effect of this pill after you threw it out? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to speak, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, after I threw this pill out, all the bees outside immediately rushed to that pill like crazy. They didn't even care about us in the cave. At that time, I finally understood why these bees were chasing us. It turned out that they were not chasing us, but the pill you gave me. Speaking of this, LV Hushan sighed and said bitterly, Yuan Weiqing, in the past few years, I've treated you to over 100 drinks. Every time, it was me who treated you. I've never let you pay for it. I wanted our relationship to be closer, but I never thought that you would give me a pill that almost harmed me. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned, and his face was full of surprise. LV Hushan, how could this be? Why didn't I know? Does that pill have such an effect? LV Hushan didn't expect Yuan Weiqing to deny it, and he was a little annoyed. Yuan Weiqing, at this point, do you still want to quibble? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, this is not quibbling, but the fact is that I gave you the pill out of kindness, but you suspected that I was harming you. I really have nothing to say. LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, you are wrong. You should have a lot to say. Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, maybe that pill can really attract the bees, but I assure you, I don't know anything. If I knew, why would I give you that pill? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, at this point, if you still don't admit it, then do you think I am a fool? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, what are you talking about? I'm just giving you a pill. Moreover, this pill is indeed a healing pill. If you don't believe me, you can go and ask him. As long as you ask clearly, I believe you will understand my good intentions. Good intentions. Hearing these words, LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, if this is your good intentions, then what should be your evil intentions? Are you going to kill me directly? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, why don't you believe me? This pill is indeed a healing pill, and the effect is very good. I believe that as long as someone has used this pill, they should know. I have no need to lie to you. LV Hushan, remember, I gave you a healing pill, not a pill that will harm you. Why are you still blaming me? LV Hushan sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, let me ask you, if you really want to give me a healing pill, why not other pills but this one? Yuan Weiqing waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, I am not a pharmacist, how would I know which medicine is good? They all said that this medicine is very effective, so I bought this medicine. Is there anything wrong with it? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to speak, he continued to speak. LV Hushan, if I want to give you a healing pill, do I have to inquire about this side effect in advance? Is there any other effect? If this is the case, LV Hushan, let me ask you, can you do this? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment, and his brows gradually frowned. After a while, he said coldly, Yuan Weiqing, let me ask you, why did you give me a healing pill? Hearing LV Hushan's question, Yuan Weiqing shook his head with a wry smile. LV Hushan, what do you want me to say to you? You are just going out to do a mission, and you may encounter danger. Should I give you a jade pendant or a fan at this time? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to speak, he continued to speak. LV Hushan, wake up. You are just going out to do a mission. If I give you those things, what is the use of them? Let me ask you, if you are me, if I don't give you a healing pill, then what do you think I should give? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned again, and he had some doubts in his heart. No matter how much he hated Yuan Weiqing, he had to admit that what Yuan Weiqing said was right. It was too easy for him to have an accident in the wilderness when he was not doing missions on the Green Mountain. The Green Mountain was very big, and there were countless beasts hidden in the mountains and forests. If he encountered these beasts and was seriously injured, the jade pendant and fan would simply not be of any use. The only useful thing was the medicine that Yuan Weiqing gave him. Could it be that Yuan Weiqing really didn't have any other meaning, and just wanted to give him a healing pill? After discovering that there was something wrong with the pill, LV Hushan was shocked. He waited for the bees to disperse before looking for the pill. Unfortunately, the pill had long been taken away by the bees. He couldn't find it no matter how hard he tried. After returning, LV Hushan also paid attention to this matter. He inquired around and finally found this medicine. LV Hushan learned from the pharmacist that this medicine was indeed a good medicine for healing, and the price was not low. When LV Hushan asked if this medicine could attract bees, these pharmacists didn't know. Later, LV Hushan met an expert, and he knew that his guess was right. This medicine could indeed attract bees. After getting this exact news, LV Hushan began to suspect that Yuan Weiqing gave this medicine to harm him. However, there was no real evidence, and his martial arts were not as good as Yuan Weiqing's. Once Yuan Weiqing was alerted, he might be the unlucky one. Therefore, LV Hushan could only suppress this matter in his heart. Today's opportunity was just right. Yuan Weiqing was seriously injured, and he was no longer Yang Ming's opponent. Even if Yang Ming said it, Yuan Weiqing couldn't do anything to him. However, what LV Hushan didn't expect was that things would develop to such a change. According to what Yuan Weiqing said, he was completely innocent, and this matter had nothing to do with him. Because he didn't know that this medicine could attract bees. Did Yuan Weiqing really just want to give him the medicine for healing, and didn't want to harm him? Although everything proved this result, Yuan Weiqing didn't believe it. He would rather believe that all of this was done by Yuan Weiqing. Seeing LV Hushan lowering his head and not speaking, Yuan Weiqing sighed and slowly said, LV Hushan, you don't have to think too much about it. I just gave you a healing pill. I don't really want to harm you. I admit that those bees were attracted by the medicine I gave you, but I didn't mean it. How could I know that this medicine could attract so many bees? This matter is also my fault. I shouldn't have given you that medicine. You should hate me. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned and suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you think I will believe you? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, I have already said that I didn't mean it. I only knew that you went to Green Mountain to do a mission, and I was afraid that you would encounter danger, so I gave you a medicine for you to use at a critical moment. LV Hushan, if I knew that I gave you this medicine, I wouldn't have given it to you, right? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, although not many people know that this medicine has this effect, if you ask carefully, you will definitely know. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to speak, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, who can guarantee that you didn't ask about the effect of this medicine in advance before giving it to me? Yuan Weiqing waved his hand and said with a sigh, LV Hushan, this is worth 100 gold coins, and the second day should not be low. If I knew this, I wouldn't have given you the 100 gold coins, so that you wouldn't blame me. It has been 3 or 4 years, but you still remember this. If I knew this, why would I do such a stupid thing? Seeing Yuan Weiqing complaining, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment and frowned. Could it be that he really didn't mean it? As soon as this thought arose, LV Hushan immediately shook his head and dismissed it. Over the years, LV Hushan knew a lot about what Yuan Weiqing had done, so he concluded that Yuan Weiqing must have done this on purpose. There was another reason why LV Hushan was sure that Yuan Weiqing must have done this on purpose. Yuan Weiqing had a friend in the secret Thunder sect in South County. This person was his cousin even if he was his friend. His cousin's martial arts were good, and his speech and behavior were very likable. Therefore, Yuan Weiqing wanted to help him become the guardian of the secret Thunder sect in South County. However, the secret Thunder sect in South County only needed 2 guardians. One was himself, and the other was LV Hushan. If Yuan Weiqing wanted his cousin to become the guardian of the secret Thunder sect in South County, he could only ask LV Hushan to step down. Naturally, LV Hushan was unwilling to step down obediently, so Yuan Weiqing used this method. Of course, all of this was LV Hushan's guess, and there was no real evidence. However, although it was just a guess, LV Hushan knew that his guess was right. This was because LV Hushan had drunk with Yuan Weiqing's cousin before. After drinking many times, he would naturally hear some things that he wanted to hear. LV Hushan remembered very clearly that he treated Yuan Weiqing's cousin to a meal that day. The wine was very good, so Yuan Weiqing's cousin drank a few more glasses and drank a little too much. No matter who it was, as long as they drank too much, they would naturally not be able to control themselves. Yuan Weiqing's cousin also said something that he should not have said. Chapter 8:22. LV Hushan remembered very clearly that Yuan Weiqing's cousin once said that Yuan Weiqing was going to help him become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. Perhaps Yuan Weiqing's cousin knew that he had misspoken at that time, so he quickly covered it up and said that there was no such thing. However, LV Hushan knew very well that if there was no such thing, how could Yuan Weiqing's cousin say that? Therefore, this matter must be true. Through the bee incident on Green Mountain, LV Hushan had already guessed that all of this must be done by Yuan Weiqing. His intention, of course, was to help his cousin become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. If there was no such incident, LV Hushan would only be suspicious, but he would not be sure. However, with this incident, LV Hushan was already sure that all of this was definitely not a coincidence. Someone had done it on purpose. Thinking of this, LV Hushan raised his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He sneered and said, "Yuan Weiqing, you don't have to quibble. In fact, I know very well what you have done, but I have never said it." LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question. Instead, he sneered and continued to speak. "However, although I didn't say it, if you think that I don't know, then you are very wrong. Let me tell you, I know everything. Don't try to lie to me again." Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "LV Hushan, I think you have really misunderstood. I just gave you a pill. It's really hard for you to think so much. If I had known earlier, I would have given you a jade pendant instead of giving you a pill." LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, "Yuan Weiqing, even now, you still want to lie to me. Well, since you still think that I don't know, then let me ask you, what's going on with your cousin?" Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was shocked and asked in a trembling voice, "LV Hushan, my cousin, what happened to my cousin?" LV Hushan sneered, "Yuan Weiqing, there's nothing wrong with your cousin. He's doing very well. It's just that one time when we were drinking, he seemed to have accidentally said something that I remembered. However, I don't know if it's true or not. Can you tell me?" Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's forehead started to ooze fine sweat beads. "LV Hushan, what did my cousin say? Why don't I know about it?" Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his question and continued to speak. "LV Hushan, if my cousin offended you, I'll apologize to you on his behalf. Please don't blame him, okay? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, how would I dare to blame him? He's the future protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. Don't you think so? What? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked and hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, what are you talking about? How could my cousin be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County? You must be mistaken. How is this possible? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, if I was killed by those bees on Green Mountain, wouldn't your cousin be able to become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County? If that's the case, Yuan Weiqing, am I wrong? The sweat on Yuan Weiqing's forehead finally dripped down. LV Hushan, don't misunderstand. How could this be? This isn't true. LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, why are you still quibbling? Your cousin told me this. How could it be false? Hearing that it was his cousin who said it, Yuan Weiqing felt a chill in his heart. He asked in a trembling voice, LV Hushan, did my cousin really say that? LV Hushan nodded. Of course. If he didn't say that, why would I doubt you? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, I think you've misunderstood. What does my cousin know? How could he be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County? I think you've misunderstood. This is absolutely not true. LV Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, if you don't believe me, let me tell you. We weren't the only ones drinking at that time. There was a third person present. If you don't believe me, we can find this third person and ask him to tell us the situation at that time. What do you think? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly waved his hand and said with a forced smile, LV Hushan, I knew it. So you were drinking. That's right. As long as he drinks too much, he naturally dares to say anything. However, when he sobers up, I'm afraid he won't even know what he said. LV Hushan, you're really something. How can you even believe the words of a drunk person? I think you must have misunderstood. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I think you shouldn't quibble. If you didn't tell your cousin about this matter, how could he dare to say it? Yuan Weiqing waved his hand. LV Hushan, have you heard of the saying that wine makes a hero brave? Let me tell you, my cousin can't drink much to begin with. After drinking, his character is even worse. He only knows how to talk nonsense. I think it must have been the same situation at that time. My cousin drank too much and became brave, so he began to talk nonsense. Then, you actually believed the words of a drunk person. I really have nothing to say. Yuan Weiqing turned his head and looked at LV Hushan. His heart had completely recovered. He said with a smile, LV Hushan, think about it. When you drank too much, did you also say something impossible? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment. Then, he sneered, Yuan Weiqing, what if I tell you that when your cousin said this, he was actually not very drunk? Although he was not very sober at that time, he was actually telling the truth. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing immediately laughed. LV Hushan, you are really something. You actually said that a drunk person was telling the truth. If you say this, how many people would believe it? LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you. At that time, after your cousin said these words, he knew that he had made a mistake. After hurriedly explaining a few words, he left in a hurry. Yuan Weiqing, when he left, I deliberately observed him. Although he was a little drunk, he didn't stagger when he walked. This means that he wasn't drunk to the point of being unconscious. So, I am sure that you must have told him what he said. Otherwise, he wouldn't have immediately realized that he had made a mistake after he finished speaking. He hurriedly explained and then left in a hurry because he was afraid that he would say the wrong thing again. Yuan Weiqing, since your cousin didn't drink too much, how could he say those words when he was drunk? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly shook his head and said with a smile, "LV Hushan, do you know that there is a kind of person who, no matter how much wine they drink, will either stand or sit? If they can't take it anymore, they will just lie down. However, they never stagger. But if they don't stagger, it doesn't mean that they didn't drink too much. It's just that they are like this after drinking. What's so strange about that?" Hearing that Yuan Weiqing was still defending himself, LV Hushan was a little annoyed. "Yuan Weiqing, why are you still defending yourself? Let me tell you, after your cousin left, I also talked about this matter with another person. In the end, I found that his thoughts were the same as mine. We both believed that you must have said these words to your cousin. Otherwise, your cousin would definitely not have said such words." After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing secretly complained in his heart that this cousin of his had no sense of propriety. Yuan Weiqing had indeed said this matter because his cousin's martial arts were not bad and he was also a good person. In his opinion, if his cousin became the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South region, he would definitely be much better than LV Hushan. However, even though Yuan Weiqing thought so, he absolutely did not dare to say it out loud. He had once said such words to his cousin when they were drinking. He had promised his cousin that if there was a chance in the future, he would definitely help him become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South region. Yuan Weiqing had indeed said such words and he really wanted to do so. However, he had never expected that his cousin, who had always been smart, would be so muddle-headed. Even if he said these words to others, he could deny it. However, his cousin actually said these words to LV Hushan, which made Yuan Weiqing feel a little helpless. LV Hushan was the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South region. If he wanted his cousin to become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South region, he could only ask LV Hushan to step down and let his cousin take over. Yuan Weiqing knew that once LV Hushan found out about this, there would definitely be no benefit. Therefore, he repeatedly instructed his cousin to not tell anyone about this matter. At that time, his cousin repeatedly promised that he would never let anyone know. Only then did Yuan Weiqing feel relieved. However, he never expected that LV Hushan would still find out. Seeing Yuan Weiqing lowering his head and not saying anything, LV Hushan sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, are you trying to use some words to quibble?" I'll tell you. You don't have to quibble. I know everything you've done. Don't even think about lying to me." Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, "LV Hushan, I think you've really misunderstood. How could I say such a thing? Just like you said, you've treated me to drinks so many times. How could I do anything to let you down?" Hearing this, LV Hushan suddenly sighed. "Yuan Weiqing, I regret it. Why did I treat you to drinks? Did I want you to have something on me and take the opportunity to frame me?" Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was shocked and hurriedly waved his hand. "LV Hushan, you've misunderstood. You've really misunderstood. I promise you that I definitely didn't say these words." LV Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, have you forgotten? When we were drinking, there was another person who could testify for me." Yuan Weiqing frowned and said with a smile, "LV Hushan, you said that there was another person who could testify for you, right?" LV Hushan nodded and said coldly, "Of course, this person's thoughts are the same as mine. They both think that you did say such words. Otherwise, your cousin would never dare to say it." Yuan Weiqing sighed. "LV Hushan, there are some words that I don't want to say. However, since you've said it to this extent, I can only say it." LV Hushan sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, are you finally willing to admit it?" Yuan Weiqing shook his head. "LV Hushan, I didn't do it. Why should I admit it?" Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan frowned. "Yuan Weiqing, what do you want to say?" Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, what I want to say is that this friend who can testify for you is not a good person. What? Hearing this, LV Hushan was taken aback. Even his voice was trembling. Yuan Weiqing, what nonsense are you talking about? This friend of mine has always been very good to me. How can he not be a good person? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a sneer, LV Hushan, as we said just now, your martial arts are not high. With your martial arts, no one will say anything about you being a disciple. However, with your martial arts, I'm afraid it's not enough to be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. Hearing Yuan Weiqing talking about his low martial arts, LV Hushan was a little annoyed. Yuan Weiqing, why are you talking about this again? Didn't I tell you not to talk about it anymore? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, this matter is very important. If I don't say it, you won't understand the truth of this matter. Hearing this, LV Hushan's expression suddenly changed. He gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, then say it. However, if you're talking nonsense, don't blame me for being rude. Do you understand? Yuan Weiqing nodded, LV Hushan, as we said just now, because everyone thinks that your martial arts are low and you are not worthy of being the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County, many people are jealous of you. They think that they are stronger than you and more suitable than you to be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. You won't deny this kind of thing, right? LV Hushan widened his eyes and looked at Yuan Weiqing coldly. Yuan Weiqing, if you have something to say it quickly. Stop talking nonsense. Seeing LV Hushan, who he had always looked down on, looking at him with contempt at this moment, Yuan Weiqing felt a little uncomfortable. However, the situation had reversed. His martial arts were not as good as LV Hushan's. Although LV Hushan's attitude was not good, he could only grit his teeth and accept it. LV Hushan, think about it. So many people in the secret Thunder sect in the South County think that you are not suitable to be the protector. Do you think that your friend thinks that you are suitable to be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. LV Hushan, I guess that your friend must be jealous of you. He thinks that he is stronger than you and is more suitable to be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. That's why he said those words. Chapter 8:23. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, what nonsense are you talking about? He's my good friend. How could he do such a thing? Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, think about it, my cousin just casually said a few words, and he analyzed so many things for you. Have you never thought about why he would say such things? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. He's my friend. Naturally, he cares about me. He's afraid that I'll be fooled by you, so he reminded me out of kindness. Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a sneer, LV Hushan, have you ever thought that your friend actually has ulterior motives when he said those words? You're talking nonsense? LV Hushan was furious. He clearly said these words to me out of kindness. How could he have ulterior motives? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, let me ask you, am I the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County? LV Hushan sneered, what do you mean? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. I mean, I'm the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. In the Tanlei sect, I actually have a lot of power. Your friend dares to say those words to you. Isn't he afraid that I'll take revenge on him? Hearing this, LV Hushan frowned and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, just because he said bad things about you, you want to take revenge on him? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, since he's talking nonsense, why can't I take revenge on him? Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his question and continued to speak. LV Hushan, I think he definitely understands this, so he should also know that if he says something wrong, I won't let him go. But why did he still say it? If I'm not wrong, this person looks down on you very much and thinks that you're not worthy of being the protector of the Tanlay sect in the South County. That's why he said those words. If you believe it, you'll definitely come to find trouble with me. With your martial arts, you're no match for me. Since you're no match for me, you can imagine your fate. At that time, how can you still be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County? I think this is his real intention. He wants to sow discord between us and then use me to get rid of you. As long as he gets rid of you, I think he will have a chance to become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. LV Hushan, do you understand now? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was suddenly stunned. He frowned and lowered his head to think carefully. He had some doubts in his heart. Although Yuan Weiqing was defending himself, LV Hushan had to admit that what Yuan Weiqing said was actually very reasonable. LV Hushan knew very well that many people in the secret Thunder sect of the South County were jealous of him. LV Hushan also did not understand. His martial arts were not high enough. How could he become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County? Even he himself was doubting this point, let alone others. LV Hushan was sure that there were many people in the secret Thunder sect of the South County who were jealous of him. They wished that he could immediately step down and let them be the protectors of the secret Thunder sect of the South County. Could it be that this person's words were really what Yuan Weiqing meant? He was trying to sow discord between him and Yuan Weiqing. He knew that he was no match for Yuan Weiqing, but he still spoke ill of Yuan Weiqing in front of him. Just as Yuan Weiqing had said, if he was hot-tempered and immediately went to find trouble with Yuan Weiqing after hearing this news, then, what would the result be? LV Hushan was sure that he would be beaten up badly by Yuan Weiqing. A dignified protector of the secret Thunder sect of the South County was beaten to a pulp. He would probably no longer have the face to be the protector of the secret Thunder sect of the South County. As long as he was no longer the protector of the secret Thunder sect of the South County, then many people would have the chance to be the protector. Could it be that this was his purpose? Thinking of this, LV Hushan gradually clenched his fists, and anger rose in his heart. He had never expected that the person he had always thought of as a good friend would actually treat him like this. Seeing LV Hushan clenching his fists, Yuan Weiqing let out a long sigh of relief and said with a smile, LV Hushan, you're very good. Although others tried to sow discord between us, you didn't believe them, so we're still good friends, right? Hearing this, LV Hushan was even more puzzled. This was why he suspected Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing had told his cousin that if he wanted to help him become the protector of the secret Thunder sect of the South County, then he could only get rid of him. When he went to Green Mountain, Yuan Weiqing gave him a medicine. Although this medicine was good for healing, it could attract a large number of bees to attack him. Was this an accident or Yuan Weiqing's real intention? Originally, LV Hushan was full of confidence and thought that this was Yuan Weiqing's way to deal with him. However, looking at it now, could it be that the pill Yuan Weiqing gave him was really unintentional? Just as Yuan Weiqing had said, he had gone on an adventure. If he gave him a jade pendant, it would be of no use. However, he gave him a good medicine for healing. This showed that he really cared about him. If he thought this way, wouldn't it mean that he had misunderstood Yuan Weiqing? He actually didn't have any ulterior motives. All of this was just a coincidence. Yuan Weiqing didn't know that the medicine could attract bees. He only knew that it was a good medicine for healing, and he didn't want to scheme against him. Seeing LV Hushan lowering his head and not saying anything, Yuan Weiqing said with a smile, LV Hushan, do you believe me now? He was trying to sow discord and use me to get rid of you. Fortunately, you didn't fall for it. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment, but then, he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his words, and continued to speak. LV Hushan, you must remember in the future that you must not associate with a friend like that because you don't know when he will take the opportunity to harm you. If you don't pay attention, you will be thanking him while he is harming you. This is the worst thing. Hearing these words, LV Hushan's heart suddenly moved, and his brows gradually frowned. The words that this friend said to him might really be like what Yuan Weiqing said. He was actually harming him. However, this was the friend's matter, not Yuan Weiqing's cousin's matter. LV Hushan himself also heard what Yuan Weiqing's cousin said. Moreover, after Yuan Weiqing's cousin said these words, he immediately knew that he had made a slip of the tongue. This proved that he didn't drink too much, but just said it in an agitated mood. This was like someone who had obtained a good thing, but he always appreciated it alone. He would definitely be very unhappy and wanted to share this good thing with others. Yuan Weiqing's cousin also had this feeling. Yuan Weiqing had once told him that he could help him become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. For such a good thing, of course, it was best to let others hear it and be praised by others. This was the best result. LV Hushan guessed that at that time, Yuan Weiqing's cousin forgot that he was talking to him, so he casually said those words. In the end, after he finished speaking, he realized that he was talking to him, so he immediately changed his words. He was afraid of saying anything more, so he directly left. This was enough to show that when Yuan Weiqing's cousin said these words, he must have been sober. The reason why he said it was to show off, but in the end, he showed off to the wrong person. This meant that Yuan Weiqing had indeed said these words to him. Thinking of this, a wave of anger suddenly rose in LV Hushan's heart. On one hand, he was angry at Yuan Weiqing for using unscrupulous means to deal with him. On the other hand, he was angry at himself for almost falling into Yuan Weiqing's trap. LV Hushan raised his head and looked at the smiling Yuan Weiqing. He sneered and said, "Yuan Weiqing, what my friend says is his business. Even if he hates me, it's between the two of us. However, you won't deny what your cousin said, right?" Seeing that LV Hushan came to his senses so quickly, Yuan Weiqing's expression suddenly froze, but he quickly waved his hand and said with a smile, "LV Hushan, why do you still remember this? Didn't I already say that my cousin drank too much? He was dreaming." "Don't tell me that you were dreaming with him?" "Dream?" LV Hushan sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, do you think you can cover up this matter by saying that he was dreaming? Let me tell you, if you think that you can make me believe you with just these few words, then you are dreaming. Do you understand?" Yuan Weiqing's expression changed. "LV Hushan, how can you say that? Don't forget that you were drinking at that time. Even if my cousin drank a little too much and said something he shouldn't have said, are you going to take his drunken words seriously?" LV Hushan shook his head and sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, if I said that your cousin wasn't drunk, what would you think?" Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a forced smile, "LV Hushan, how is this possible? If he wasn't drunk, how could he say such words? So I definitely won't believe you. You must have misunderstood." Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan gritted his teeth. "Yuan Weiqing, tell me the truth. Did you tell your cousin that you want to help him become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County?" Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a smile, "LV Hushan, don't misunderstand. How could I say such a thing? There are only two protectors in the Tanlei sect in the South County. One is me, and the other is you. Our Tanlei sect in the South County has always had two protectors. Now that all the protectors are here, how could I say such a thing to my cousin? Don't you think so?" LV Hushan sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, you're right. The Tanlei sect in the South County indeed only needs two protectors. However, if I'm gone, won't you be able to let your cousin become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County?" Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, you're too muddle-headed. I'm only the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. I'm not the hall master of the Tanlei sect in the South County. Do you think that I can decide who the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County wants? LV Hushan, don't misunderstand. This matter has nothing to do with me. If I'm the hall master of the Tanlei sect in the South County, I can decide who the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County is. Then, it's possible for me to say such words. However, how can I be the hall master of the Tanlei sect in the South County? Don't you think so? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's explanation, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment, and his brows gradually furrowed. What Yuan Weiqing said seemed to make sense. Even if he was not the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County, it did not seem to be up to him to decide who the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County wanted. Seeing LV Hushan lowering his head and not saying anything, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly said with a smile, LV Hushan, you can't be fooled by others. As long as you think clearly, you should know that it's up to the hall master to decide who the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County is. No one else has the right to decide. After understanding this, LV Hushan, you won't doubt me anymore, right? LV Hushan nodded subconsciously. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. He turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked in a low voice. Yuan Weiqing, let me ask you, did you really not say that? Yuan Weiqing immediately nodded. Of course, how could I say that? LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I suddenly remembered something. Once, Hall Master Shui asked me about my cousin's character. At that time, I didn't care, but now that I think about it, I seem to understand. You must have told Hall Master Shui about this, right? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how is that possible? Why would I say this? Besides, how could Hall Master Shui be willing to listen to me about this? LV Hushan, don't forget that Hall Master Shui has the final say on who will be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. It's useless even if others say it. Don't you understand? LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, I didn't understand what Hall Master Shui meant in the past. Now I understand everything. You must have looked for Hall Master Shui and said that I'm not good enough. Then, you want your cousin to be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County, right? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how is that possible? How could I say such things to Hall Master Shui? You must be wrong. LV Hushan shook his head. No, I can guarantee that you must have said such things. Otherwise, your cousin wouldn't have said such things. At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, this matter is not a small matter. I think that no one would talk about something without any evidence. There must be some reason. And this reason is probably because you said such things to your cousin, so he remembered it in his heart and even took it seriously. That's why he dared to show off, right? Chapter 824. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, I really didn't say it. How could I say such a thing to him? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, are you still not willing to admit it? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, if I didn't say it, why should I admit it? LV Hushan suddenly reached out and grabbed Yuan Weiqing. He said in a deep voice, Yuan Weiqing, I think you should admit it. Do you think that even if you don't admit it, I won't think that you didn't do it? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, I really didn't say it. How can I admit it? LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, even if you don't admit it, don't you think I don't know that you said it? LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. Instead, he snorted coldly and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you. When we go back, as long as I catch your cousin, do you think he will say it? Hearing this, cold sweat broke out on Yuan Weiqing's forehead. He hurriedly explained, "LV Hushan, you can't do this. Even if you force him to say it, do you think it's true?" LV Hushan let go of Yuan Weiqing and sighed. "Yuan Weiqing, you're too stubborn. The evidence is conclusive, but you still refuse to admit it. Let me tell you, I'm not the only one your cousin has told about this. Do you know? As far as I know, your cousin has told at least 10 people about this. Do you still want to quibble?" 10 people? Yuan Weiqing was shocked. How could it be? How could he tell so many people? LV Hushan nodded and said with a sneer, "Yuan Weiqing, in fact, he didn't just tell these 10 people, because other than these 10 people, I didn't ask anyone else. Let me tell you, I asked a total of 15 people, and 10 of them told me that your cousin told them about this matter. Yuan Weiqing, think about it. 10 of the 15 people know about this matter. If all the people in the secret Thunder sect in the South County are added up, how many people do you think will know? Yuan Weiqing, now that things have come to this, are you still unwilling to admit it?" Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was stunned. He never thought that his cousin, who seemed to be very capable, would do such a stupid thing. 10 out of 15 people had heard of this matter. Didn't that mean that more than half of the people in the secret Thunder sect in the South County already knew about this matter? Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing knew that even if he wanted to quibble, LV Hushan would not believe him. What should he do? Yuan Weiqing was very clear that if he did not admit it, LV Hushan really could not do anything to him. However, once he admitted it, LV Hushan would really do something to him out of anger. At that time, it would be too late for regret. What should he do? Yuan Weiqing's mind spun quickly. He wanted to think of a safe solution. At the very least, he had to stabilize LV Hushan first. He couldn't let him go crazy. Seeing Yuan Weiqing lowering his head and not saying anything, LV Hushan sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, so many people in the secret Thunder sect in the South County know about it, but you're still quibbling with me. Do you think I'm a fool?" Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. "LV Hushan, how is this possible? If you're a fool, how can you become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County?" "The protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County?" LV Hushan sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, it's because you think I'm a fool that you think I'm not worthy of being the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County, right? You've been scheming against me because you think I won't find out, right? Aren't you treating me like a fool? What do you think I am?" Yuan Weiqing was so anxious that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He waved his hand repeatedly. "LV Hushan, don't misunderstand. I definitely won't treat you like a fool. All of this is a misunderstanding." LV Hushan looked at Yuan Weiqing with burning eyes and asked coldly, "Yuan Weiqing, since you don't treat me like a fool, then let me ask you, have you ever said such words to your cousin?" Knowing that he couldn't hide it anymore, Yuan Weiqing could only sigh and say slowly, "LV Hushan, you're right. I admit that I did say such words." LV Hushan's face immediately widened. He stared at Yuan Weiqing fiercely. "Sure enough, you did all of this. Well, since you dared to do it, don't blame me for being rude." After saying this, LV Hushan reached out to grab Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing saw that things were not going well, so he waved his hand vigorously and said, "LV Hushan, listen to me. I have a reason. Please believe me." "Believe you?" LV Hushan stopped and stared at Yuan Weiqing fiercely. He sneered, "Yuan Weiqing, you've done so many bad things to me, and now you want me to believe you. Don't you think it's ridiculous?" Yuan Weiqing shook his head. "LV Hushan, in your life, haven't you done anything that you had no choice but to do?" LV Hushan's eyes narrowed and he sneered. "Yuan Weiqing, do you mean that your cousin threatened you?" Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a wry smile, "LV Hushan, no. His martial arts are not as good as mine. How could he threaten me?" LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, since your cousin didn't threaten you, does it mean that you said it voluntarily? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said slowly, LV Hushan, sometimes, even if no one threatens you, you have to say it. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer him. LV Hushan, before you become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County, do you want to be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County? LV Hushan frowned and said coldly, Yuan Weiqing, aren't you talking nonsense? As long as one is a member of the Tanlei sect in the South County, who doesn't want to be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing nodded, that's right. You're right to think so. My cousin also thinks so. From the first day he came to the Tanlei sect in the South County, he thought so. Not only does my cousin think so, but he also wants to succeed. However, there are only 2 protectors in the Tanlei sect in the South County. How is it possible for him to be the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County? Therefore, every time he said it, I would reject him without hesitation. However, one time, I drank too much and accidentally agreed to it. Therefore, he took this matter seriously and thought that I would really help him become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. You know what happened next. He thought it was true, so he showed off to many people. However, although he took it seriously, I couldn't take it seriously. Because the Tanlei sect in the South County only needs 2 protectors. How is it possible for him to be a protector? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing turned around and looked at LV Hushan as he let out a sigh. LV Hushan, I told them when I was drunk. Actually, I didn't know about it. When I found out about it, it was too late for me to regret. Hearing this, LV Hushan sneered. So, you gave me a pill and prepared to make a move on me to fulfill your promise to your cousin? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand when he heard this. LV Hushan, how is that possible? I was drunk at that time. I didn't take it seriously. How could I really do it? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you think I will believe your words? Yuan Weiqing smiled bitterly and shook his head. LV Hushan, it's up to you whether you believe me or not. In short, this is the truth. I didn't lie at all. LV Hushan turned his head and glared at Yuan Weiqing coldly. Yuan Weiqing, do you dare to say that you didn't have any bad intentions when you gave me that pill? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly nodded, of course. Why would I have any bad intentions? I didn't really want to help my cousin become the protector of the Tanlei sect in the South County. Why would I do it? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment and began to have some doubts in his heart. What Yuan Weiqing said was not impossible. It was not strange to say anything when one was drunk. In addition, Yuan Weiqing's cousin begged and Yuan Weiqing agreed casually when he was drunk. This kind of thing was very likely to happen. Then, Yuan Weiqing's cousin believed it and showed off this matter to his friends. Yuan Weiqing did not want to do this. He just said it casually and never took it seriously. And that pill was indeed not done on purpose. It was done with good intentions. Could it be that this was the truth? Could it be that he had really misunderstood Yuan Weiqing? In fact, Yuan Weiqing had never wanted to deal with him. Thinking of this, LV Hushan actually felt a sense of guilt. When he found out about this matter, he immediately flew into a rage and did a series of things that were detrimental to Yuan Weiqing. If what Yuan Weiqing said was true, then wouldn't everything he did be too unfair to Yuan Weiqing? Thinking of this, LV Hushan raised his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly saw a trace of a smile in Yuan Weiqing's eyes. Seeing this gaze, LV Hushan's heart could not help but skip a beat. Could it be that he had guessed wrongly? Otherwise, why would Yuan Weiqing have such a gaze? Although LV Hushan did not know the meaning of this gaze, he felt like he was being mocked. Could it be that he had guessed wrongly? In fact, all of this was done on purpose by Yuan Weiqing. It was definitely not unintentional. Thinking of this, LV Hushan raised his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He sneered, Yuan Weiqing, do you think that I will believe you if you say this? Hearing LV Hushan's question, Yuan Weiqing was stunned. He thought that the matter was over, but he never thought that after his words, LV Hushan still doubted him. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, don't you believe what I said? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, how do you want me to believe you? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment. But then, he did not wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, I can guarantee that when you said those words, you were definitely not in a state of drunkenness. You said it when you were sober. As for your cousin pestering you, this is all nonsense. Do you think I will believe it? Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you. I have drunk with your cousin many times. I know very well what kind of person he is. He is definitely not the kind of person you said. Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, do you mean that I am lying? LV Hushan nodded without hesitation. That's right. Yuan Weiqing, you are lying. You are lying to me. What you said is your truth. Your cousin's martial arts are not bad, and he is also very capable. So you think that he is stronger than me, so you want him to be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County, right? Yuan Weiqing was shocked that LV Hushan had seen through his thoughts. He hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how is this possible? How can my cousin be stronger than you? All of this is just your imagination. It is definitely not true. LV Hushan, don't worry. I won't do that. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I know that you are lying to me because your cousin's martial arts are higher than mine. You don't even dare to say this. How can you make me believe you? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, my cousin's martial arts are higher than yours, but not by much. If you get angry, his martial arts might not be able to beat you. Then tell me, what's the use of having such a higher ability, right? Normally, LV Hushan would be very happy to hear someone flatter him like this. But now, he couldn't because he knew that Yuan Weiqing was lying. Yuan Weiqing's cousin's martial arts were strong, but he was only slightly weaker than Yuan Weiqing. Compared to Yuan Weiqing's martial arts, he was afraid that his own martial arts were far inferior. Through this comparison, LV Hushan easily knew that Yuan Weiqing's cousin's martial arts were definitely much higher than his own. If the two of them really fought, even if he was furious, he was afraid that he would not be able to beat Yuan Weiqing's cousin. Yuan Weiqing's martial arts were strong. How could he not know that his cousin's martial arts were higher than his? LV Hushan was sure that Yuan Weiqing must know that his cousin's martial arts were much higher than his, but he refused to say it and insisted that their martial arts were about the same. LV Hushan was very clear about his current thoughts. Thinking of this, LV Hushan raised his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing. He sneered, Yuan Weiqing, you think too highly of me. To tell you the truth, your cousin's martial arts are much higher than mine. If the two of us fight, I'm afraid I won't be his match within 30 moves. Yuan Weiqing, are you happy to know that your cousin's martial arts are so high? Hearing LV Hushan's question, Yuan Weiqing's expression changed. He hurriedly waved his hand and forced a smile. LV Hushan, what's the use of having a higher martial arts? This is nothing. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's answer, LV Hushan waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, just because his martial arts are high, you want him to be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in South County, right? Yuan Weiqing was so scared that he waved his hand. How is that possible? Chapter 825. LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, don't quibble anymore. The truth is right in front of you. Even if you quibble, do you think I'll believe you? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, I've already said that I didn't do it on purpose. He pesters me every day and wants me to help him be the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. I was just saying it perfunctorily. Who knew that he would take it seriously? LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, don't lie to me. Your cousin is not that kind of fool. If there is no real evidence, he wouldn't dare to say it. At this point, LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked with a cold smile, Yuan Weiqing, perhaps you've even made a plan. That's why your cousin is so confident that he will definitely become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's heart skipped a beat. Even he believed his own words. That's right. Yuan Weiqing's cousin was not someone who did not know the severity of the matter. The two of them must have a plan and felt that this plan would definitely succeed. That was why his cousin was so confident. And their plan might be his trip to Green Mountain. The medicine that Yuan Weiqing gave him was the most important part of the plan. This was because they knew very well that as long as they had this medicine, they would definitely attract all the bees on Green Mountain. Most importantly, this kind of bee was not everywhere. There were many kinds of bees in this world. These bees were big and small. Some attacked people, and some ran away when they saw people. In short, the bees on Green Mountain were the most powerful. They were big, had fierce attacks, and had large numbers. As long as they were surrounded by these bees, they would not be able to escape. LV Hushan knew very well that if they had not found the cave that day, none of them would have been able to escape. They would have all been killed by those bees. Yuan Weiqing had been to Green Mountain a few times in the past, so he naturally knew that there were such bees on Green Mountain. If this was Yuan Weiqing's plan, LV Hushan now believed it very much. If this was true, how much hatred did Yuan Weiqing have for him? Thinking of how he had to treat this guy to a drink every 3 to 5 days, LV Hushan was furious. Yuan Weiqing, are you worthy of me? I've been so good to you, yet you treat me like this and use such a scheme. It seems like you don't plan on letting me come back. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how is that possible? Don't worry, it's not what you think. Although the bees you met on the Green Mountain were attracted by the pill, I didn't do it on purpose. LV Hushan, think about it. Even you don't know that the medicine can attract bees. How would I know? Let me tell you, I only know that the medicine is good for healing, so I specially bought it for you. If you don't believe me, then there's nothing I can do. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I won't believe you. No matter what you say, this matter is definitely related to you. Especially about your cousin. You must have said something to him. It can even be said that you and your cousin came up with this plan, right? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you don't believe anything I say. What else do you want me to say? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I just want to know if you did this. Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, you already have the answer in your heart. Even if you ask me, you won't believe me. What's the use of me saying it? LV Hushan grabbed Yuan Weiqing and said angrily, Yuan Weiqing, I've been so good to you. Why are you doing this to me? Let me ask you, where's your conscience? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing couldn't help but frown. He turned to look at LV Hushan and sighed. LV Hushan, if someone else asked me this, I might have nothing to say. But LV Hushan, do you think you're qualified to ask me this? What? Hearing this, LV Hushan was furious. Yuan Weiqing, tell me honestly. Since I came to the secret Thunder sect in the South County, how many times have I invited you to drink? Do you still remember? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, if it's possible, I agree to invite you to drink every day. I don't want to see what you did to me. What did you say? LV Hushan was stunned for a moment and asked with some doubts, Yuan Weiqing, what are you talking about? Why don't I understand? Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. LV Hushan, you keep saying that I've let you down, but have you let me down? LV Hushan, there are some things I don't want to say because I don't want to hurt our friendship. But since you asked me, I can only say it. LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, what do you have to say? I haven't done anything to let you down. Even if you say it, it has nothing to do with me, right? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, if it has nothing to do with you, then why should I say it? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question. LV Hushan, actually, you should know better than me what I want to say. Do you have to make me say it to make you happy? Hearing this, LV Hushan's expression suddenly changed. He frowned and asked, Yuan Weiqing, what are you talking about? Why don't I know what you're talking about? Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sighed. Yuan Weiqing, it's not that you don't know, but you're pretending not to know. In fact, since you've done it, why don't you dare to admit it? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I didn't do anything. Why should I admit it? What should I admit? Why don't you make it clear? Yuan Weiqing turned to look at LV Hushan and asked with a sneer, LV Hushan, do you really want me to say it? LV Hushan waved his hand impatiently. Yuan Weiqing, if you want to say it quickly. If you don't want to say it, answer my question. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, I've already answered your question. That matter has nothing to do with me. It's your own imagination. Do you understand? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, don't quibble. If I don't understand what happened, then I'm a fool. Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, why don't you believe me? Why do you think of me as such a bad person? If I want to deal with you, there are actually many ways. Do I have to use that method? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, in fact, this method is already very good. On that day, if no one among the three of us had come to Green Mountain and didn't know the cave where we were hiding, I'm afraid none of us could escape. Your plan would naturally succeed. Yuan Weiqing, speaking of which, it's not that your plan isn't good, but that we're lucky. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, this plan has too many variables. If I want to deal with you, I don't need to use so many tricks. As long as I deal with you directly, what can you do? LV Hushan, your martial arts are not as good as mine. If I deal with you directly, you're definitely not my match. In that case, why should I do such a ridiculous thing? Hearing this, LV Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I admit that your martial arts are indeed higher than mine. However, in the secret thunder sect of the South County, do you dare to use martial arts to deal with me? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, if you dare to use martial arts to deal with me, the one who will be unlucky will definitely not be me, but you. I think you should know this better than me, right? LV Hushan knew very well that in the secret thunder sect of the South County, Hall Master Shui would never allow the people in his sect to fight among themselves. Once it was discovered, he would definitely punish them severely. It was precisely because of this reason that LV Hushan dared to assert that Yuan Weiqing would definitely not dare to use martial arts to bully him. Once Hall Master Shui knew about this, the one who would be unlucky would definitely be Yuan Weiqing. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, do you mean that if I want to deal with you, there's no way at all? LV Hushan sneered and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, no, really no. Other than your martial arts being higher than mine, let me ask you, what else are you better than me in? If you don't use martial arts to deal with me, then what do you use? Are you sure you're my match in other aspects? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, have you ever thought that if I want to deal with you, I don't have to stay in the secret thunder sect of the South County? As long as we all go out, I can use martial arts to deal with you. Who will know? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you've finally said what you want this time. But unfortunately, I've long been on guard against you. Have you noticed that every time I walk out of the secret thunder sect of the South County, there have to be at least 5 or 6 people? Yuan Weiqing, I think that no matter how high your martial arts are, if you want to deal with me, you have to deal with those 5 or 6 people. Because if they tell others about this, I'm afraid it will be very disadvantageous to you. So, even if I leave the secret thunder sect of the South County, you definitely won't dare to make a move on me. Because as long as you make a move, the 5 or 6 people around me will know. At that time, the one who will be unlucky will be you. Yuan Weiqing, I think it's because of this reason that you're unwilling to make a move, right? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. Then, he sneered and shook his head. LV Hushan, you really know how to talk. Do you think that as long as you go out with 5 or 6 people at the same time, I won't be able to make a move on you? Let me tell you, if I want to make a move on you, I have plenty of opportunities. It's just that I don't want to make a move on you, so you're fine until now. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, you're too interesting. You clearly didn't have the chance to make a move, but you dare to say that you don't want to make a move on me. Do you think I'll believe such a lie? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, why don't you believe me? Think about it. Even if you go out with 5 or 6 people at the same time, won't you be separated? Let me tell you, with your martial arts, as long as you're separated from those 5 or 6 people for a while, I'm afraid I'll have the chance to make a move on you. LV Hushan, until now, do you still think that I won't have the chance to make a move on you? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, this is impossible. Since I've been guarding against you, how can I make such a mistake? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, in order to prevent you from making a move on me, I have to travel with 5 or 6 people every time I go out. This is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that whether we stay in a hotel or eat, we will always be together. More importantly, even if we go to the toilet, we will always be together. Yuan Weiqing, I have such a tight defense. I want to know, how else can you make a move on me? Hearing this sentence, Yuan Weiqing was stunned and then waved his hand. LV Hushan, even if what you said is true, whether it is eating or staying together, do you also sleep together? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, of course. I know that you have bad intentions towards me. How can I give you a chance? Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, not only do we eat and stay together, but even when we sleep, I will also choose a large shared bed. A group of us will live together. I think, in this state, as long as I keep a certain level of consciousness, as long as I see you coming, I'm afraid that everyone will hear me if I shout. So, even when I'm sleeping, you won't have any chance to make a sneak attack on me. Yuan Weiqing, don't you think so? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, do you mean that you have such a tight defense just to guard against me? LV Hushan nodded. Yes, Yuan Weiqing, are you a little disappointed? I believe that every time I go out, you will secretly look for an opportunity, right? But it's a pity that after looking for so long, I'm afraid you haven't found a chance to deal with me, right? Yuan Weiqing waved his hand. LV Hushan, you think too much. How can I deal with you? Even if you go out alone, you can rest assured that I will never make a move on you. LV Hushan shook his head and sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I used to believe that too. But ever since you hurt me, I don't dare to believe you anymore. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing's face suddenly changed. LV Hushan, what nonsense are you talking about? You tell me clearly, when did I hurt you? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I really didn't expect that your memory is so bad even though you are not old. Why can't you even remember what you did? Yuan Weiqing, I think you deliberately can't remember? Otherwise, this matter will only take 2 years. Chapter 8:26. LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, I think it's not that you can't remember, but you deliberately pretended to forget to deceive me, right? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, I didn't. LV Hushan looked at Yuan Weiqing with burning eyes and said coldly, Yuan Weiqing, you did. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, since you don't want to admit it, it seems that I can only say it myself. Do you still remember that after the Qingshan incident you gave me something? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing frowned. What? Peerless saber technique. LV Hushan gritted his teeth and said these words, Yuan Weiqing, do you still remember this martial arts secret book you gave me? Yuan Weiqing's face changed. Of course I remember. This is a saber technique secret book that I spent a lot of effort to get. Seeing that you always treat me to drinks, I am willing to give it to you. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he sneered and continued. LV Hushan, is there a problem with this saber technique secret book? LV Hushan turned his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing coldly, and asked with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, what do you think? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, I don't understand what you want to say. Do you know how much effort I spent to get this saber technique secret book? However, my kung fu is different from this saber technique secret book. If I want to practice it, I am afraid I have to start from scratch. It is for this reason that I gave this saber technique secret book to you. LV Hushan, don't tell me that this saber technique secret book is fake? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, this saber technique secret book is real. After practicing it, you will be very powerful. However, you never told me about the danger of practicing this saber technique secret book. Yuan Weiqing waved his hand and said with a smile, LV Hushan, it's just practicing a saber technique. What danger is there? At worst, I won't practice it. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, this saber technique manual is real. Whether it's the cover or the contents of this manual, they are all real. I won't deny that. At that time, LV Hushan had just returned from Green Mountain when Yuan Weiqing gave him this script. He had also investigated the matter of the bees, so he was naturally on guard against Yuan Weiqing's gift. Therefore, he specially asked someone to check this script to prove that this script was indeed authentic. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, I don't understand. Since the secret saber technique is real, why would I trick you? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, you are indeed a meticulous person. Everything you do is watertight. Just like the saber technique manual, this one is real. Although the level is not very high, if I practice according to the contents of the book, my martial arts will definitely catch up with yours. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, do you think that the level of this saber technique manual is low, so you are dissatisfied? LV Hushan shook his head. According to the level of this saber technique manual, it's actually suitable for me to practice. It's just one level higher. Yuan Weiqing sneered. Since it's just right, what else do you have to say? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, I've shown this script to others, and they all said that it's real. LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer him. He sneered and continued to speak without caring for Yuan Weiqing. Yuan Weiqing, although this script is real, I can't practice this script. Do you know why? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's face suddenly changed, and he hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, why? Since you said that the script is real, why can't you practice it? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. LV Hushan, I think you are a little too suspicious. A good saber technique manual, anyone can practice it. Why can't you? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, although the cover of this secret manual is real, and the content is also real, you changed a few words in it, making this secret manual become both real and fake. It can be said to be real, but it can also be said to be fake. Yuan Weiqing, let me ask you, do you dare to practice this kind of script? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said, LV Hushan, how is this possible? Since you said that the script is real, how can I change your words in the script? LV Hushan nodded and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, it's because of this reason that I praised you for your meticulousness. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, in this script, to be precise, you didn't change the words, but added more strokes. Do you admit it? Nonsense. Yuan Weiqing's forehead was already covered in cold sweat, and he hurriedly defended himself. LV Hushan, what nonsense are you talking about? Why would I add strokes to a good script? How is this possible? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, not only is it possible, but you have already done it. Are you satisfied? But unfortunately, I'm not stupid. After practicing to the first degree, I found that there was a problem with this secret manual, so I didn't continue to practice it. That's why you didn't get the result you wanted. Are you disappointed? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, your martial arts are not high. I gave you this secret book because I wanted to help you improve your martial arts. How could you think of me as such a bad person? If so, why did I give you this script in the first place? If the script is fake, even if you have an accident, then wouldn't I be responsible? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan waved his hand and said with a smile, Yuan Weiqing, you are not that stupid. You are much smarter than we thought. The reason why you added strokes to this script is that I can't see through the strokes you added because you are very careful. You added the strokes in the places I least pay attention to. The most important thing is that even if I have an accident because of practicing this script, no one will suspect you. This is where you are smart. Speaking of which, I really admire you. After listening to LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, don't talk nonsense. If you had an accident while practicing this secret manual, just like what you said, I have already changed the strokes in the dense book. How could others not see it? Therefore, if I really tampered with this secret manual, as long as you get into an accident, everyone will suspect me. At that time, even if you get into an accident, I won't be any better. I'll be as unlucky as you. LV Hushan, do you think I will do such a stupid thing? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan sneered and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, of course you wouldn't be so stupid. You wouldn't have left this evidence to prove that you've changed this saber technique. Yuan Weiqing wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and asked, LV Hushan, what are you talking about? Since I have changed the strokes, how can no one see through it? LV Hushan sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, in fact, this is where you are smart. The strokes that you have changed on that script are all in a special ink. As long as the time is up, the writing will disappear immediately and the place where you have changed the strokes will naturally return to its original state. At that time, who do you think will be able to see through it? Yuan Weiqing, you are really a smart person. In order to deal with people like me, you can come up with such a good idea. I am really flattered. After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing's heart suddenly trembled and he secretly cursed. What LV Hushan said was what he had done. How could he not know? That's right, he had indeed changed the strokes of that saber technique secret book. Moreover, the ink used for writing was indeed the same as what LV Hushan had said. As long as the time was up, the strokes would immediately disappear. At that time, when others picked up this saber technique secret book, It would be the real saber technique secret book, not a modified one. So no matter who looked at it, they would absolutely not be able to see that Yuan Weiqing had changed this script. Yuan Weiqing could not come up with this plan. Speaking of which, it was all thanks to his smart cousin. This secret saber technique book was also given to him by his cousin to carry out this plan. Yuan Weiqing never thought that after carefully planning for so long and even using a script, he still could not get rid of LV Hushan. According to the original estimation, as long as LV Hushan practiced the martial arts in the Saber Secret Manual, he would definitely fall sick in less than 3 months. If he continued to practice, he would immediately die in less than a month. 4 months later, the extra strokes on the Secret Saber Technique Manual disappeared with time. It could be said that this plan was absolutely foolproof, and it was impossible to be discovered by anyone. However, it was discovered by LV Hushan. This was really unexpected. In Yuan Weiqing's eyes, LV Hushan had never been a smart person. He could even be considered a reckless person. Could such a person really see through his plan? Yuan Weiqing really did not believe it. However, after 4 months, LV Hushan was still fine, which made him even more suspicious. However, he did not dare to ask about this kind of thing. He could only pretend not to know about it. Seeing that Yuan Weiqing did not answer his question, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you still dare to quibble now? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, how is that possible? Since I gave you the Secret Saber Technique book, it was to help you improve your martial arts. How could I waste my effort to harm you? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, to be honest, with your martial arts, if I want to deal with you, I really don't need to go through so much trouble. Just like what I said just now, as long as you leave the secret Thunder sect in the South County, can you escape from my hands? LV Hushan, don't let your imagination run wild. This matter can't be what you think. I gave you the martial arts script. It's fine if you don't thank me, but how can you doubt me? LV Hushan, if you don't like that martial arts script, then you can return it to me. Just pretend that I didn't give it to you, okay? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment, then he sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, if you didn't give me the script, then how could you harm me? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. LV Hushan, I didn't. Why would I harm you? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, your teeth are really hard. Now that the evidence is conclusive, you still want to quibble. I'm really disappointed in you. Conclusive evidence? Yuan Weiqing looked at LV Hushan with some doubts. LV Hushan, what nonsense are you talking about? What evidence do you have? What conclusive evidence? Why don't I understand? LV Hushan turned his head and looked at Yuan Weiqing with burning eyes. He sneered and said, Yuan Weiqing, you really don't understand. If you understood, you wouldn't have done this. At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, the method you used to make the words disappear is a little outdated, and the material is not good. You might not have tried it before, but I'll tell you now. When you use this material as ink, it's exactly the same as ink when you first write it. Ordinary people absolutely can't tell the difference. Even I can't tell the difference. However, you may never know that after writing these words, although the words will disappear after 4 months, there will be some shiny things left in the place where the words were written. If you don't look carefully, you can't see them. But if you look carefully, you can definitely see them. To be honest, I was very lucky. After getting this secret book, I didn't immediately start practicing, but chose to study it. Of course, I didn't study the martial arts in the secret book, but whether there were any problems with this secret book. During this period, I happened to have other things to do. As a result, I delayed the time to practice the secret book. About half a year later, when I studied the book you gave me again, I found that if you looked carefully, you could see the shiny things on some of the word. Then, I carefully studied the shiny things on the characters. In the end, I realized that the shiny things were the strokes of the characters. However, they had disappeared after a long time. Yuan Weiqing, now you understand how I know that you changed the words on this secret book, right? Chapter 8:27. After hearing L.V. Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was taken aback. He asked in a trembling voice, L.V. Hushan, what are you talking about? What shiny thing? Why don't I know about it? L.V. Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I know you don't know. If you knew, why would you do this? At this point, L.V. Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. However, it doesn't matter if you know or not, because it's enough for me to know. Yuan Weiqing, am I right? Hearing L.V. Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. L.V. Hushan, I don't know what you're talking about, but even if there are those things in the secret book, does it have to be me who did it? L.V. Hushan suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, the secret book is yours. You said you didn't do it, then tell me who did it? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. How would I know? If I knew, wouldn't I have caught him? How could such a thing happen? L.V. Hushan suddenly pointed at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, you don't need to quibble. These things must have been done by you. If you didn't do it, then tell me who did it. Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at L.V. Hushan, sighed and said slowly, L.V. Hushan, we are the only two guardians in the secret Thunder sect in the South Commandery. We should help each other to make a career, but look at you. You always suspect me for no reason. I gave you a medicine, and you said I wanted to harm you. I gave you a secret book, but you said I wanted to harm you. L.V. Hushan, do you know that I spent a lot of gold coins to buy the medicine that I gave you? If I had known that you would be like this, I would have kept it for myself. How could I have given it to you? It would have saved me a lot of complaints. Do you think that secret book is a cabbage that can be picked up by the roadside? L.V. Hushan, let me tell you, I spent a total of 2,000 gold coins to buy that secret manual. But when I gave you something worth 2,000 gold coins, not only did you not thank me, you even hated me. L.V. Hushan, if you didn't say it today, I would still be proud of my generosity. How would I know that you actually think like this? I really regret it now. Why did I give you something? If I didn't give you something, then there wouldn't be any trouble. L.V. Hushan, I admit that this is all my fault. Don't worry, I won't give you anything in the future. Is that okay? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, L.V. Hushan frowned and was stunned. If what Yuan Weiqing said was true, then this matter was really his fault. It was indeed inappropriate for him to constantly doubt the intentions of others when they gave him something. However, was Yuan Weiqing really giving it to him out of goodwill? Thinking up to here, L.V. Hushan could not help but grit his teeth. He was sure that Yuan Weiqing absolutely did not have good intentions. Otherwise, why would he give him such a precious thing? Although the medicine was only worth 100 gold coins, that was only the price. It was not that easy to buy it. It was indeed a good thing to say that this medicine was very precious. L.V. Hushan had also read that saber technique manual. He knew that the martial arts recorded in this saber technique manual were much higher than the martial arts he was currently practicing. If he could master it, L.V. Hushan was sure that he would definitely be able to surpass Yuan Weiqing in martial arts. Yuan Weiqing would probably have to put in a lot of effort to obtain such a precious saber technique manual. It would definitely not be easy to obtain it. Yuan Weiqing gave these two precious things to him. If the two of them had a good relationship, L.V. Hushan would not think anything of it. However, was the relationship between the two of them really good? Thinking of this, L.V. Hushan snorted coldly in his heart. He did not know why. Both of them were protectors of the secret Thunder sect in the South region. Why was their relationship so bad? On the surface, the relationship between the two of them was very good, but in their hearts they really did not think so. Through these two matters, LV Hushan was sure that Yuan Weiqing definitely wanted him to abdicate and then let his cousin become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South region. Thinking of this, LV Hushan raised his head to look at Yuan Weiqing, sighed, and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, to be honest, logically speaking, the relationship between the two of us should be very good. But why did it become like this? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a smile, LV Hushan, is our relationship not good? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you think the relationship between the two of us is good? Yuan Weiqing nodded. Of course, our relationship is very good. As long as we have nothing to do, we will drink and chat together. Is our relationship not good? Hearing this, LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, have you forgotten what I said just now? When the two of us drink, I will treat you. If I don't treat you, will you treat me? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly nodded. Of course, if we drink together, someone has to pay. Every time, you pay first. I'm just not as fast as you. What's so surprising about that? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, you're wrong. It's not that I pay quickly, but that you never thought of paying. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's face turned slightly red, then he waved his hand and said with a smile, LV Hushan, how is this possible? It's just a drink. How much can it cost? How can I not think of paying? LV Hushan sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, I'm also wondering. It doesn't cost much every time we drink. Why are you still unwilling to pay? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he continued. It wasn't until a long time later that I realized that it wasn't that you didn't want to pay, but that you didn't think highly of me, right? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing's expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly waved his hand. LV Hushan, what are you talking about? We're all protectors of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. How can I look down on you? How can I not pay for this reason? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, because of this reason, you look down on me and think that I'm not worthy of being the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. That's why you never paid. Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, why do you think so? If I knew this was the case, I really wouldn't have asked you to treat me. Why bother? We're just drinking and chatting together. Whether you pay or I pay, is there a difference? LV Hushan sneered and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, of course there's a difference. After I treated you to a drink, it's because I think highly of you and treat you as a friend. However, after you drank my wine, you never thought of treating me to a drink. This is because you look down on me, so you feel disdain to treat me to a drink, right? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, I didn't expect you to think so much. It's just a drink. Why do you keep thinking about it? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued. LV Hushan, if you feel that I'm looking down on you, then fine. After we go back, I'll treat you 100 times in a row. Is that okay? LV Hushan sighed and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, I appreciate your kindness in treating me to a drink, but how can I dare to drink the wine you treat me to? Don't you think so? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he sneered and continued. What if one day after drinking at your place, I suddenly have a stomachache or something else happens? Then tell me, should I blame you or thank you? Hearing these words, Yuan Weiqing couldn't help but frown. LV Hushan, you see how difficult it is for me. I said that I would treat you to a drink, but you don't dare to drink. What do you mean? Are you afraid that I will harm you? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing, gritted his teeth and asked, Yuan Weiqing, don't you know how to do it? Yuan Weiqing hurriedly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, you are too suspicious. How can I do such a thing? Besides, if I put something in the wine and you feel uncomfortable after drinking it, then I am afraid that others will suspect me. How can I let you have a stomachache? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, you're too cunning. I've already seen through you through the medicine and the secret saber technique book that you gave me. You definitely don't have any good intentions towards me. Hearing LV Hushan's words, a trace of anger suddenly flashed in Yuan Weiqing's eyes. LV Hushan, what do you mean by this? Let me ask you, will I harm you? LV Hushan gritted his teeth and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, won't you? Yuan Weiqing nodded. LV Hushan, well, since you said that I will harm you, then I will also tell you. When you harmed me, did I say that? What? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was suddenly taken aback. Yuan Weiqing, what are you talking about? When did I harm you? Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, in fact, I am also very clear about what you have done. However, you think that I don't know. In fact, I know all about it. I just don't say it. LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, what are you talking about? Why don't I understand? Yuan Weiqing turned to look at LV Hushan and asked with a sneer, LV Hushan, do you want me to make it clear before you are willing to admit it? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, do you think that I am like you? I didn't do anything. What do I have to admit? You didn't do anything? Yuan Weiqing repeated this sentence and sneered. LV Hushan, let me ask you. After drinking from you for a period of time, I was very sleepy when I returned home. Can you tell me the reason? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was suddenly taken aback. He asked with a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, what are you talking about? Why don't I know about this? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, of course you don't know because I have never said it. How could you know that I already know about this matter? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he continued to speak. LV Hushan, then can you explain to me why I am always sleepy and weak after drinking your wine? LV Hushan was stunned for a moment. Then, he waved his hand and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, your question is really interesting. After drinking wine, you are sleepy and tired. Is there anything strange about this? I think many people seem to have this reaction after drinking too much. I think if you want to blame this matter, blame yourself. You drank too much, so you are sleepy. Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sighed. Yuan Weiqing, at the beginning, I actually thought the same. I thought that I drank too much, and the alcohol went to my head. That's why I felt sleepy and especially tired. However, every time I drank from you, I was like this. Even if I didn't drink a lot, it was still the same. I had some doubts. More importantly, when I went to other places to drink, even if I drank too much, I didn't seem to have this reaction. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing turned his head and looked at LV Hushan. He gritted his teeth and asked, LV Hushan, then tell me, why do I feel sleepy when I drink at your place? Hearing this sentence, LV Hushan's face suddenly changed, but he quickly reacted and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, what's so strange about this? When you go to other places to drink, you don't drink too much every time. But when you come to my place, of course you drink as much as you can since it's free. That's why you have this kind of reaction, right? When you come to my place to drink, can I stop you from drinking too much? That's not the way to treat a guest. Why would I do such a thing? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, in fact, you are still quibbling now. I really admire you. Things are already so obvious, why don't you admit it? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, what's so obvious? What do you want me to admit? Do you want me to admit that I put something in the wine? Yuan Weiqing, think about it carefully. How is this possible? If I put something in the wine, can't you taste it? What if you drink something in the wine, and your martial arts are higher than mine, then you say, if you go crazy, then wouldn't I be unlucky? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, this is where you are smart. If I didn't happen to know a friend in this field, I really wouldn't know that you used this method in the wine. Speaking of which, you are really amazing. Chapter 828. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's face suddenly changed. He asked in a trembling voice, Yuan Weiqing, what are you talking about? What did I do to the wine? Can you explain it clearly? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused for a moment and panted a few times. But then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question, he continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, I'm telling you, if you are talking nonsense, don't blame me for being rude to you. So, you should be careful with your words, understand? Hearing LV Hushan's threatening words, Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, since we have talked about it today, then I am not afraid of anything. I might as well say it for everyone to hear. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment. He then turned his head to look at LV Hushan and sneered. LV Hushan, you've put a slow-acting poison in the wine. If there's no accident, the poison will take effect after drinking this wine for about 50 times. Nonsense. Hearing this, LV Hushan immediately exclaimed, Yuan Weiqing, you are talking nonsense. How can there be such a thing? Why have I never heard of it? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a sneer, LV Hushan, how can you not know? Because this is what you are doing right now. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, what are you talking about? What did I do? Is it wrong for me to treat you to a drink? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, you treated me to a drink. I am very grateful to you, but you put a reaction in the wine. Tell me, how can I be grateful to you? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, this is all nonsense. How can I put a reaction in the wine when there is no such thing? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he sneered and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, don't forget that every time the two of us drink, we use the same wine pot. If you say that I'm reading in the wine, then let me ask you, if you're reading in the wine, then wouldn't I also be reading in the wine? Yuan Weiqing, don't you think what you're saying is ridiculous? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing shook his head and sneered. LV Hushan, you can't be that stupid. How can you be a middle school student? LV Hushan gritted his teeth. Yuan Weiqing, I've told you that we're all from the same pot. How could you be in trouble while I'm not? Yuan Weiqing sighed. Because, in this world, there is something called the antidote. Although we both drank the same wine, you took the antidote and I didn't. In this way, only I am in trouble and you are fine. LV Hushan's forehead was already oozing with cold sweat. Yuan Weiqing, you're talking nonsense. We've been drinking. How could I have the opportunity to take the antidote? Yuan Weiqing waved his hand and said with a sigh, LV Hushan, you think I don't know, but let me tell you, in fact, I know everything. I know everything you've done. Do you still want to quibble? LV Hushan gritted his teeth and suddenly sneered. Yuan Weiqing, don't talk nonsense. We drank the same wine, and I didn't leave in the middle. Then tell me, when did I take the antidote? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused, and then he slowly said, Yuan Weiqing, let me ask you, have you seen me take the antidote? Yuan Weiqing sighed. If I didn't know this kind of reading, I really didn't know you took the antidote. But after I knew what kind of reading it was, I naturally knew when you took the antidote. LV Hushan, I advise you not to quibble anymore. It's meaningless because I know everything. If you continue to quibble, I'm afraid I'll really look down on you. LV Hushan, a real man dares to take responsibility for his actions. Even if you did it, you should bravely admit it. Only then will I admire you. Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan shook his head and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, I didn't do anything. What should I admit? Yuan Weiqing, you just said that I was paranoid and thought the worst of everything. Now it seems that you are the one who is really paranoid. I just treated you to a drink, but you actually thought so much. This is unexpected. If I knew this, how could I treat you to a drink? Not only did I not get any benefits, but I also got myself into trouble. Tell me, why did I bother? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, if you sincerely treat me to a drink, then I am sincerely grateful to you. But you used this method to deal with me. Do you expect me to be grateful to you? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, I treated you to a drink. Even if you don't thank me, I won't blame you. However, you use such words to brush me off. Isn't this a bit too much? At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, I treat you to so much wine every year. Do you know how many gold coins I spend? Can't I use these gold coins to do other things? Why must I treat you to a drink? Yuan Weiqing, to tell you the truth, I just feel that the relationship between the two of us is really not good, so I want to use drinking to get closer to you. There are only 2 protectors in the secret Thunder sect in the South region. If we are not united, who can help us if something happens? Don't you think so? It is precisely because of this reason that I often treat you to a drink. I hope that our relationship can be further improved. Once we encounter danger, we can take care of each other. Yuan Weiqing, I know that my martial arts skills are low, so every time I treat you to a drink, I have to pay for it. I don't have any complaints, because I know that if our relationship gets closer, you will definitely save me when I am in danger. But now, it seems that not only did I not get closer to you, but it also made you doubt me. Yuan Weiqing, I really regret it. How good would it be if I didn't treat you to a drink? If I use these gold coins to treat others to a drink, I believe that they will definitely be grateful to me. At the critical moment, they will also help me. Why do you think I should do this? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned and sighed. After a while, he said slowly, LV Hushan, to be honest, from the first time you treated me to a drink, I also thought so. There are only 2 protectors in the secret Thunder sect in the South region. If we don't help each other, who else can we count on? So, every time you treat me to a drink, I won't refuse, because I also want to get closer to you. LV Hushan, although your martial arts are not as good as mine, as the saying goes, one more friend means one more path. I don't care about your martial arts, I only care about you. It is precisely because of this reason that I will drink with you. Even if I have other things to do, I will decline them to drink with you. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment. He let out a long sigh before continuing. LV Hushan, it's a pity that my idea is good, but you actually treat me like this. You really disappoint me. If I had known this earlier, even if you treat me to a drink, I would never have gone. After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, what are you talking about? Is it wrong for me to treat you to a drink? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a wry smile, LV Hushan, of course it's not wrong for you to treat me to a drink, but I'm afraid it's your fault for putting poison in the drink, right? I didn't. Hearing these words, LV Hushan hurriedly explained, Yuan Weiqing, how many times have I said that I didn't put poison in the drink? Why don't you believe me? Yuan Weiqing, tell me, how can I explain it so that you will believe me? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and sneered, LV Hushan, no matter how you explain, I won't believe you. Because my friend has seen through your plan and knows that you have poisoned the wine. Tell me, how can I still believe you? Your friend? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, who is your friend? How does he know about this? How does he know that there is poison in the drink? Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan and said slowly, LV Hushan, I won't say his name. I'll tell you directly that my friend is also from the Tanlei sect in the South County. He specializes in various medicinal materials and is a professional in this field. That's why he knows that there is poison in the drink. Now you have nothing to say, right? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was stunned for a moment. Then he sneered and shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I just want to ask you. He is your friend. Do you believe what he says? What about me? We have drunk so many times. Why don't you believe me? Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, I have already said that my friend is a professional in this field. Do you think I should believe his words? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, although your friend is a professional, don't forget that no matter how professional he is still a human. Since he is a human, maybe he has his own thoughts. Is he saying this to you out of kindness? After hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing's face suddenly changed. LV Hushan, what do you mean by this? Do you think my friend will lie to me? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, why not? Give me a reason. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment. Then he sneered and said, LV Hushan, let me tell you. We have been good friends for many years. We are good friends who can talk about anything. Do you think I can believe such a good friend? LV Hushan turned his head to look at Yuan Weiqing and sighed. Yuan Weiqing, we are also friends, but do you think I should believe you? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, how can the relationship between the two of us be compared to the relationship between me and my friend? Let me tell you, don't talk nonsense. My friend will never lie to me. You must have put something in the wine. This is absolutely not wrong. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I have invited you to drink so many times, but in exchange for your suspicion, it really makes me disappointed. Yuan Weiqing suddenly sneered. LV Hushan, I have just said that the thing you put in the wine must be drunk 50 times before it will take effect. LV Hushan, if I am not wrong, this should be the reason why you always invite me to drink. In fact, you don't have any good intentions. You just want me to drink 50 times so that this thing will take effect as soon as possible. LV Hushan, I am right. I advise you not to deny it because it is meaningless. I will not believe you. Do you understand? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, according to what you said, wouldn't you believe anything I say? Then why should I say it? So you don't have to ask me. If you believe it, then it is up to you. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing couldn't help but frown and said coldly, LV Hushan, now that things have come to this, do you still want to quibble? LV Hushan shook his head and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, let me ask you. Have you heard of a reading that needs 50 times before it will take effect? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. Although I haven't heard of it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. The thing you put in the wine is this reading that can only take effect after 50 times. LV Hushan waved his hand and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, your friend's words can only deceive you. If he wants to deceive others, I am afraid it is an impossible thing. Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, are you saying that my friend is lying? LV Hushan nodded, of course. If what he said is not a lie, how could he say such a ridiculous thing? Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, do you think that I will believe you if you quibble like this? Then tell me, why did he lie to me? Hearing this sentence, LV Hushan was overjoyed. He was waiting for this sentence. Yuan Weiqing, do you really want to know why he lied to you? Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, I want to hear what else you have to quibble about. LV Hushan nodded and said slowly, Yuan Weiqing, since you want to hear it, then I will tell you. Otherwise, you will be deceived by others and still don't know. Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, let's talk about the initial problem. He said that this kind of wine will take effect after 50 times. Why do you think he said that? Hearing LV Hushan's question, Yuan Weiqing sneered, LV Hushan, because this is the truth, that's why he said that. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, what you said is wrong. The reason why he said that is because he wants you to doubt him. Think about it. In this world, there is no reading that can only take effect after 50 times of drinking. This is obviously a lie, but he doesn't want to be seen through by you, so he told you so many times. As for 50 times or 80 times, isn't it just him saying it casually? Chapter 829. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, why did he say it so many times? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, this is because he doesn't know how many times you have drunk this wine. Think about it. If he said 3 or 5 times, then if you have drunk more than 10 times, doesn't that mean that the thing in the wine has already acted up? Then, isn't what he said a lie? So in order to prove that what he said is true, he can only say as many times as possible. If you have drunk the wine 20 times, then he said 50 times, which means that you still have 30 times. If you have drunk the wine 10 times, then there are only 40 times left. In short, the number of times he said it must be more than the number of times you have drunk the wine. I guess in his opinion, you must have not drunk the wine 50 times, so he dares to say so. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, you are talking nonsense. I can't believe you. Do you still remember the antidote I said? LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, as for the antidote, that's even more nonsense. There's no antidote. Did you see me take any antidote? Isn't that a lie? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, don't lie to me. The antidote you took is actually a common thing, and I don't eat this kind of thing. So, we drank the problematic wine together. You took the antidote there, but I didn't. In the end, you definitely won't have a problem. The only one who has a problem is me. LV Hushan, I have already said it. Do you still want me to say it clearly? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's face couldn't help but change, and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. But soon, LV Hushan calmed down and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, you really dare to say that a common thing is the antidote. Isn't this a bit too ridiculous? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, it is not ridiculous at all. It is because of this reason that I have never seen that you are harming me. You are talking nonsense? LV Hushan was a little annoyed. Yuan Weiqing, when did I harm you? I only treated you to a drink, and we even drank the same wine. How did it become me harming you? At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, if I knew you were such a person, I wouldn't have invited you to drink. You know, there are so many people who want to drink with me, but I didn't agree. Instead, I rushed to invite you to drink, and in the end, there are so many problems. Yuan Weiqing, are you worthy of me? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, should I say that you've let me down? So many people invited me to drink, but I rejected them all. I only promised you. Do you know why? It's because I want to get closer to you and let the two protectors of the secret Thunder sect in South County get closer to each other. However, I never expected that my kindness would be used by you. When you used me to drink with you, you put that kind of thing in the wine. LV Hushan, tell me, are you worthy of my painstaking efforts? LV Hushan sneered. Yuan Weiqing, I treated you to a drink and I paid for it. No matter what, I can't let you down, right? Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan and said coldly, LV Hushan, it's a good thing that you treated me to a drink, but you put that kind of thing in the wine. This is harming me. Do you want me to thank you for harming me? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, I've already said that I didn't harm you. I never wanted to harm you. Why don't you understand? Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, how can I not understand? You just want to harm me. If you don't want to harm me, why did you put that kind of thing in the wine we drank? LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, I didn't? Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, you did. Don't you admit it? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, since it's useless for me to say anything, and you don't believe me, what else do you want me to say? Yuan Weiqing gritted his teeth. LV Hushan, I want you to admit that you did put that kind of thing in the wine. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, I didn't do it. Why should I admit it? Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan, gritted his teeth and said, LV Hushan, in fact, the kind of thing you laughed at is very common. It's just that few people know its effect. If people know that you put this kind of thing in the wine, no one will believe that you are harming me. They will just laugh it off. After hearing these words, the blue veins on LV Hushan's forehead suddenly jumped, and his face became ugly. Yuan Weiqing, what are you talking about? Why don't I understand? Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, since you don't want to admit it, then I will say it. At this point, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment, but then, he didn't wait for LV Hushan to answer his words and continued to speak. LV Hushan, the thing you put in the wine is the common wild bear feces. Wild bear feces are very common. Everyone who sees it will avoid it. But only a few people know that although the wild bear feces is very common, if it is taken for a long time, like what we just said, drinking wine 50 times, there will be a problem. If it is taken in small amounts, it is not a big problem. That's why my friend said that I need to drink it so many times, then I will have a problem. LV Hushan, this time you have nothing to say, right? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan was suddenly taken aback, and his face became livid. Yuan Weiqing, how do you know? Looking at LV Hushan's ugly face, Yuan Weiqing nodded with satisfaction. This was the effect he wanted. LV Hushan thought that he did it very secretly, but he never would have thought that he knew this secret. Wild bear feces have trace amounts of readouts, but the amount is too small, so even if you eat it, it will be fine. But if you eat it too many times, there will be a big problem. Normally, no one would research the poop of a wild bear, so very few people knew about it. Only a few strange people would want to research the poop of a wild bear. Yuan Weiqing was very lucky. His friend had studied this matter, so he knew that if you eat too much wild bear feces, there will be a problem. From the standpoint of a friend, he told this news to Yuan Weiqing, telling him to be on guard as soon as possible and not to take it again. It was also because this friend told him this news that Yuan Weiqing knew why every time he drank at LV Hushan's house, he would get drunk very quickly. As soon as he got home, he would lie down and sleep immediately, without any energy. At that time, Yuan Weiqing also asked why he was drunk and LV Hushan was fine when the two drank the same wine. Yuan Weiqing's friend also answered this question because he was an expert. His friend said that everything in the world has an antidote, so wild bear feces also have an antidote. If you want to solve the problem of wild bear feces, you can only eat honey from bees to cure it. Hearing this news, Yuan Weiqing suddenly realized why every time he drank, there would be a dish made with honey. The most important thing was that Yuan Weiqing never ate sweets, so he never ate the dish made with honey. After knowing this, Yuan Weiqing now thought about it. It seemed that every time LV Hushan drank a glass of wine, he would eat a dish made with honey, and then he would eat something else. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing understood at that time that he was tricked by LV Hushan. In addition to being annoyed, Yuan Weiqing was also secretly frightened. If his friend didn't tell him this news, He was afraid that it wouldn't take long for him to be completely finished. According to what his friends said, he and LV Hushan had already drunk more than 3 times. If they drank more than 10 times, the wild bear feces would start acting up. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing was really scared. If he hadn't discovered it long ago, he wouldn't have known anything. He would have fallen into LV Hushan's trap. Yuan Weiqing never thought that there would be wild bear feces in the wine that LV Hushan drank. Thinking of this, Yuan Weiqing felt disgusted. Most importantly, LV Hushan actually accompanied him to drink the wild bear feces. He was really amazing. When he heard this news, Yuan Weiqing was furious and wanted to find LV Hushan to settle the score. However, his friends stopped him because not many people knew about this matter. Even if he told others, not many people would believe him. In addition, the two of them were protectors of the secret Thunder sect in the South County, so the influence was great. If there was a problem, it wouldn't be good for the entire secret Thunder sect in the South County. It was precisely because of various reasons that Yuan Weiqing didn't tell others about this news. However, the number of times he went to LV Hushan to drink in the future was much less. This was because when Yuan Weiqing thought of the wild bear feces, he couldn't eat any more delicious food. Most importantly, every time Yuan Weiqing drank at LV Hushan's house, when he returned home, he would drink a jar of honey to remove the effect of the wild bear feces. Although Yuan Weiqing didn't want to eat sweets, for his own safety, he could only grit his teeth and drink a jar every day. The reason why Yuan Weiqing didn't expose this trick was that he understood that even if he said it, no one would believe him. Therefore, he could only endure and take the opportunity to take revenge. Yuan Weiqing raised his head and looked at LV Hushan. He sneered, "LV Hushan, now that things have come to this, you have nothing to say, right?" After listening to Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan couldn't help but frown. He knew that Yuan Weiqing knew all of his plans, but it was impossible for him to admit it. "Yuan Weiqing, don't you think what you said is ridiculous? Who would know that the wild bear feces could have such an effect? Yuan Weiqing, if this is true, then wouldn't the wild bear feces be a treasure?" Yuan Weiqing frowned. "LV Hushan, it's not that no one has studied it, but many people have studied it. However, the effect of the wild bear feces is too small, so most people have never used this kind of thing after studying it." Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing turned his head to look at LV Hushan and suddenly sneered. "LV Hushan, to be honest, I really admire you. You let me eat the wild bear feces because you wanted to harm me. But even you accompanied me to eat it and you even knew about it. Could it be that you like the taste?" Hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's face changed. "Yuan Weiqing, what nonsense are you talking about? Who likes the taste?" Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he sneered and continued to speak. "Yuan Weiqing, I understand. It turns out that you like the taste. No wonder after knowing that there was such a thing in the wine, you still drank it. I really didn't expect that, Yuan Weiqing, you actually like it." Hearing these words, Yuan Weiqing suddenly became angry. "LV Hushan, this time you admit it? It was you who wanted to use the wild bear feces to harm me, right?" LV Hushan shook his head. "Yuan Weiqing, this is the first time I've heard of the wild bear feces you mentioned. Since I didn't know, how could I use this kind of thing to harm you?" Hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing was stunned for a moment, then he sneered. "LV Hushan, I really didn't expect that now that the evidence is conclusive, you actually dare to quibble. Could it be that you think I don't understand your quibbling?" Hearing these words, LV Hushan waved his hand and said with a smile, "Yuan Weiqing, I think you misunderstood. I deny it because I didn't do it, so I denied it. If I did this, I would definitely stand up and take responsibility. Do you think I'm like you, not daring to admit what you did? Let me tell you, I, LV Hushan, am definitely not that kind of person. Hearing these words, Yuan Weiqing snorted coldly. LV Hushan, if you don't admit it, do you think I don't know? Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing's tone paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his words, he snorted coldly and continued to speak. LV Hushan, let me ask you, every time you drink, why do you eat dishes made with honey? Can you still deny this point? Hearing this question, LV Hushan casually waved his hand and sneered. Yuan Weiqing, you are my friend. We have drunk together so many times, but you don't even know that I like to eat sweets? Yuan Weiqing, have you forgotten that every time I drink, I eat sweets? Even during normal times, I like to eat sweets very much. Could it be that even if I want to eat sweets, it's wrong? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing was stunned, then he sneered. LV Hushan, no one cares if you eat sweets, but why do you have to eat them after drinking? This is not to remove the effect of the wild bear feces. Tell me, what is it for? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, I really didn't expect that even if I eat sweets, you still have to check it out. Chapter 830. LV Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, is it wrong for me to want to eat sweets after drinking? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and said with a sneer, LV Hushan, I don't care what you want to eat, but you put something in my wine, especially that kind of thing, I absolutely can't forgive you. Wild bear feces. LV Hushan nodded and suddenly laughed. Yuan Weiqing, according to what you said, we have drunk a lot of this wine during this time, I don't know, how do you feel? When he heard this, Yuan Weiqing suddenly felt a little disgusted. LV Hushan, don't say any more, quickly admit it honestly, don't make me look down on you. LV Hushan shook his head and sighed. Yuan Weiqing, since you know that I put wild bear feces in the wine, then why did you come when I invited you to drink? Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, this is my business, it has nothing to do with you. I just want to know, do you admit it or not? LV Hushan shook his head and slowly said, Yuan Weiqing, don't you see that this matter is like what you said just now, your friend doesn't have any good intentions? What? Hearing this sentence, Yuan Weiqing could not help but frown. LV Hushan, what do you mean? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, what I mean is, your friend and my friend are no different, they both want to harm you and me. What they said is the same, they want to sow discord between us, it's best to make us fight. Yuan Weiqing, I don't understand, how can you believe this kind of person's words? Yuan Weiqing clenched his teeth. LV Hushan, are you saying that my friend lied to me? LV Hushan nodded. Of course, such an obvious thing, can't you see it? Yuan Weiqing shook his head and suddenly sneered. LV Hushan, I know, you want to sow discord between us, so that I will no longer doubt you, right? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, why would I think that? I just don't want you to be cheated. Moreover, after being cheated, you still treat the other party as your friend. That's what I don't want to see the most. Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, according to what you said, you're the good guy and my friend is the bad guy, right? Hearing this, LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, you're right. I'm a good person, but your friend is not. At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, think about it carefully. The secret Thunder sect in the South County only has 2 protectors. If we don't unite, can we unite with the outsiders? What's more, you're a protector, and I'm also a protector. Although your martial arts are high, your status is not higher than mine. Since that's the case, what reason do I have to harm you? Think about it carefully. You harmed me because you want your cousin to become the protector of the secret Thunder sect in the South County. What about me? What reason do you think I have to harm you? Yuan Weiqing, I don't have a cousin, and I don't want anyone to become the protector of the secret thunder sect in the South County. What reason do I have to harm you? Think about it carefully. Why do I always treat you to drinks? Isn't it to get closer to you? Since I have such thoughts and we get along well when we drink, why would I harm you? Yuan Weiqing, if you can give me a reason, I will naturally admit it. But you don't even have a reason. How can I admit it? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, do you need a reason to harm me? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, am I really so bad in your heart? Even if I want to harm you, don't I even need a reason? At this point, LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question and continued to speak. Yuan Weiqing, let me tell you, no matter what we want to do, there will always be a purpose or how many benefits we can get. If I harm you, tell me, what benefits can I get? Hearing this, Yuan Weiqing frowned. After a while, he suddenly sneered. LV Hushan, do you really want me to tell you your true intentions? LV Hushan nodded. Yuan Weiqing, that's right. Tell me quickly because I also want to know my intentions. Until now, I haven't found any reason to harm you. After harming you, what benefits can I get? After hearing LV Hushan's answer, Yuan Weiqing sighed and said slowly, LV Hushan, since you want to hear it, I'll tell you what's in your heart. Speaking of this, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then he continued without waiting for LV Hushan to answer him. LV Hushan, don't think that my martial arts are higher than yours. In fact, from the beginning, you were very unconvinced of me. You thought that although my martial arts are higher than yours, I was very stupid and not as smart as you. The two protectors of the secret thunder sect in the South County should be eliminated. Of course, you are the first protector, and I can only be the second protector. However, you also know that no matter what you think, my martial arts are higher than yours, so you want to surpass me. But you are different from others. You want to surpass me in martial arts, but you don't work hard to cultivate. Instead, you want to harm me. LV Hushan, through my friend's introduction, I already know very well that the wild bear's feces will not kill people, but will slowly weaken people's martial arts. Of course, the person's martial arts would only gradually fade away after 50 doses. LV Hushan, now that the evidence is conclusive, do you still want to quibble? After hearing Yuan Weiqing's words, LV Hushan's expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, you misunderstood. Why would I do that? Speaking of this, LV Hushan paused. After weighing in his heart, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, I really don't think so. You and I are both protectors of the secret thunder sect in the South County, and your martial arts are high. At the critical moment, you can help me. How can I be jealous because your martial arts are higher than mine? Yuan Weiqing, don't worry, I definitely don't think so, and I won't let your martial arts weaken because of this. To be honest, if I want to surpass you, as long as I practice martial arts well, even if I can't surpass you, at least I won't fall behind you. Why would I do such a thing? Yuan Weiqing, please believe me. It's definitely not like what you said. Hearing LV Hushan's explanation, Yuan Weiqing frowned and said with a sneer, LV Hushan, you really disappoint me. I've already said it so clearly, but you're still quibbling. Now, I'm not only looking down on you because of your low martial arts, I'm also looking down on your courage. You dare to do it, but you don't dare to admit it. What kind of hero are you? LV Hushan wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. Yuan Weiqing, you really misunderstood me. It's impossible for me to do such a thing. Besides, the two of us are drinking. I'm just inviting you. It's your business whether you want to come or not. How could I have the chance to scheme against you? Hearing this sentence, Yuan Weiqing sighed. LV Hushan, you're blaming me. Blaming me for drinking with you, right? LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, your words are too disappointing. Tell me, you've said so much, and every word is accusing me. Then let me ask you, what evidence do you have? Don't tell me that you believe your friend's words? Evidence. Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing immediately sneered. LV Hushan, you want evidence, right? LV Hushan nodded and said with a sigh, Yuan Weiqing, I suspect that your friend has ulterior motives and wants to take the opportunity to sow discord between you and me, so I advise you not to believe his words. Yuan Weiqing waved his hand. LV Hushan, do you think that I have no other evidence besides my friend's words? Hearing this, LV Hushan suddenly froze and asked tentatively, Yuan Weiqing, could it be that you have other evidence? Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, do you think I'm as reckless as you? At this point, Yuan Weiqing paused for a moment, but then, without waiting for LV Hushan to answer his question, he snorted and continued. LV Hushan, actually, I've known about this for a long time. Many people in the secret Thunder sect in the South County have heard you mention it. Do you think that they won't tell me? LV Hushan frowned. Yuan Weiqing, tell me, what did they say? Yuan Weiqing sighed. Once, I was drinking with a few friends. These friends told me that when you were drunk, you once said that although my martial arts were higher than his, I didn't have any intelligence. So you suggested that you be the first guardian of the secret Thunder sect in the South County, and I can only be the second guardian. Yuan Weiqing turned to look at LV Hushan and asked with a sneer, LV Hushan, you said this. You won't deny it, right? Hearing Yuan Weiqing's question, LV Hushan hurriedly waved his hand. Yuan Weiqing, how could I say such a thing? I admit that your martial arts are higher than mine. Your intelligence is also higher than mine. I didn't say anything else. Yuan Weiqing shook his head. No, LV Hushan, you said it, and you didn't say it to one person. There were a total of 3 people who were drinking with me at that time. All 3 of them heard you say these words. Do you still want to deny it? 3 people. LV Hushan turned to look at Yuan Weiqing and asked coldly, Yuan Weiqing, tell me who these 3 people are. When I go back, I will ask them what I, LV Hushan, have done wrong to them. Yuan Weiqing sneered. LV Hushan, do you want to take revenge on them? Hearing this, LV Hushan reacted and hurriedly waved his hand. He forced a smile and said, Yuan Weiqing, how can that be? I just want to ask them face to face. Why are they talking nonsense? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, for their safety, I'd better not tell you. Otherwise, how can I live up to what they said to me? LV Hushan sighed. Yuan Weiqing, you said it just now. That's what people say when they're drunk. Can you take it seriously? Besides, whether or not I said those words at that time, no one has concrete evidence, right? Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, if it's just one person, I won't say anything. I'll take it that he heard it wrong. But there are 3 people. They didn't hear it at the same time. They heard you say it separately. Is there anything wrong with that? LV Hushan, I advise you to admit it quickly so that I won't look down on you. LV Hushan froze for a moment, then said with a wry smile, Yuan Weiqing, maybe I said it, but it was when I was drunk. How can it be taken seriously? Don't tell me that when you were drunk, you didn't say something that even you didn't know? Speaking of this, LV Hushan's tone paused for a moment. But then, without waiting for Yuan Weiqing to answer his words, he continued. Yuan Weiqing, just like your cousin. Didn't he say something that he didn't know when he was drunk? Is it okay for your cousin to say it, but I just said it when I was drunk, and you took it seriously? Hearing LV Hushan's words, Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, your situation is different from my cousin's because when you said these words, you didn't drink too much. You were speaking the truth. LV Hushan waved his hand and said with a sneer, Yuan Weiqing, I don't understand. Why is your cousin talking nonsense, and what I said is the truth? Yuan Weiqing sighed. Because when you said these words, you didn't say it when you were drunk. This point, the three of them can prove it. LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, how could I believe your words? You said that there are 3 people who can prove that I've said such words. Then if I say that there are 5 people who can prove that you've also said the same words, do you mean that you've said them? Yuan Weiqing frowned. LV Hushan, why are you still quibbling? There are so many people who can testify, but you still don't want to admit it. Let me ask you, what do I have to do to make you admit it? LV Hushan shook his head. Yuan Weiqing, to tell you the truth, no matter what you say, I won't admit it because I didn't say it. Why should I admit it? LV Hushan paused for a moment, but he didn't wait for Yuan Weiqing to answer his question. Instead, he sneered and continued to speak. What's more, your martial arts are indeed higher than mine. Even if the secret Thunder sect in the South County chooses the first protector, they can only choose you. Why would they choose me? In this situation, do you think I can still say those words? Hearing these words, Yuan Weiqing shook his head. LV Hushan, don't quibble, because at that time, you didn't just say these words, but also said something else. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.